Are we live yet? Is
Yes, we're
anyone
live.
here?
They can hear us, they can see us. Everyone's raring at the bit to go, right?
All right.
I did give you that roll. Hopefully it works. We'll see. I'll
Well,
remove it
when
at
we
the
get
end,
to it,
but
you just let me know.
we'll do. We'll do.
How are things going?
Oh, it's look. We had a roller coaster of a weekend. I
Yeah.
think yesterday went pretty good. Today we'll see. I'm not gonna lie. I'm a little nervous for this. I'm a little nervous for this one.
You and me both. I was like, what do I say yes to? And here we are.
Here we are indeed. I spent most of the weekend looking and trying to contact the people involved in the at least beginnings of this controversy. I reached out. I think I even told you this. I reached out to the person who wrote the Kotaku article. I reached
Mhm.
out to a few other authors of various articles that have been written on this. I did a lot and spent a lot of time reading the journalistic response to this. I also contacted what's his name? Cabrutus. Cabrutus. I'm not sure how you say
Mhm.
it, but he's the guy that made the curated list. I'm sure we'll get into that. And he gave me some information we'll talk about. But yeah.
I
So that's
mean, I
my
don't mind
weekend.
saying publicly, like everyone I talk to in the game industry does
Mm.
not want to be associated with this. They do not want to deal with it, and they learned their lesson during Gamergate. So that is very much the conversations that I've had. So I tried to get other people on the show today, and no one is interested.
That's the thing. Like they're it's I'll just save it for the show. I'll save it for the show. I'll save it for when people get here because I think it's gonna kick off the discussion. Well, I'll give you this. They say they don't want to be involved in it, but then you read their articles,
Yeah,
and it's
yeah.
a different ball game. Okay.
But don't you think that's, I mean, a journalist there, we'll save it for the show.
Yeah,
I'll
we'll
shut
save it
up.
for the show. We'll save it for the show. Like I said, it would kick off discussion. Seattle, Tachyon, how are you both
Hey,
doing today?
check
Good, good.
one, two,
You?
three. Doing good.
Okay, we're live by the way. We are on screen, on camera. Everyone can hear you and see you. Brianna, you got a camera for us today or
Oh, is it not on?
it
I
is not on?
apologize.
Okay.
I'm missing
I
some of
could
my
have gone the
lights.
whole show because I was doing makeup like 5 seconds before I came on. I could have just not done any of that.
It's all good. No, we got
No,
it.
it's not. It's not.
We got we SFO. Let me DM him. He's coming.
SFO late?
I
Oh,
know, crazy, right?
wow. That is bananas.
Give me a second. But how are the rest of you doing? Seattle, Tachyon, how was your weekends? Give me some airtime while I do this. Hold on.
Oh, I can fill
Good.
air. No, it's good.
Yeah, my friend celebrated his birthday, so we got ramen and then we went out for drinks and went back and played Eternal Darkness on GameCube and a couple other games too. Pretty fun.
That's old school.
I'm boring. I
I'm
clean my house. Good.
oh, I'm working through Final Fantasy Rebirth. It is so much better than I thought it would be. I didn't really like Final Fantasy VII Remake that much, but I don't know why. Rebirth is just really, really clicking with me. And then Contra comes out, and then Unicorn Overload comes out, and we've got Rise of the Ronin coming out. So I don't know. I gotta play more games.
Yeah, I had mixed feelings about the remake, the FF7 remake.
Yeah,
Um I'm I'm going to wait, right? Because when the Rebirth came out, all the reviews were glowing that I saw, at least on my timeline, right? Everyone was talking about how great it was. But as it's been out, it's become more mixed. I'm curious. I'm waiting for the PC release in about a year or something. So
yeah.
we'll see, right?
Well, it's at the end of the month, isn't it?
Is it? Is the PC release at the
I
end of the
think
month?
so. I think so. It's like a month long exclusive, but I could be wrong about that.
I'll have to. I'm just not sure, but yeah, I'm waiting. I'll pick it up almost certainly when it gets here, but we'll see. Dev, how's it going?
Hello, what's going on?
Hey, yeah, well, welcome. We're all here now. I think the gang's all together. We have assembled. So let's get this party started. We're going to have a lot of things to go over today, and I want to get right into it. Gang, welcome to the show. Today we're going to be talking about the recent Sweet Baby Inc. controversy. What is it? What exactly happened? What are some of the responses, not only from gamers themselves, but from gaming communities, as well as from developers and game journals? There's been a lot of articles released on that. We'll get into that too. I did, full disclosure, invite the authors of some of these articles on to be with us on the show, such as the author of the Kotaku article. I reached out to her specifically. I have not heard back from any of them with a positive or a negative, which isn't surprising. I'm not a huge channel, but I would have liked their perspective in this discussion as well. But unfortunately, we make do with what we got. So I would like to start off by welcoming my guests, allowing them to introduce themselves, and then maybe giving just a short, concise opening thoughts on this, and then we'll go from there. We're going to start with everyone's favorite, Brianna Wu. Go ahead.
So, Wick, I think most people know me. I want to start today by talking on another scurrilous Gamergate lie that came into our box today. So, the tweet Hohenmeister sent this to me and says he was critiquing the show, like, oh, this is going to be a panel tonight with a 0 word per hour and 0 playtime in her Steam library. And then talking about Dev, he goes, versus a closeted gay guy stuck in the 2016 SJW era. And I just want to start off by saying this is a complete lie. I do want to show my Steam library right here. Has it come on screen? Does that do it?
Oh,
there we go. There we go. Okay, so look at this. Just in the 129 hours on Cyberpunk alone, this is just a lie. I'm not a 0 person, and I would like a retraction on that. Thank you very much.
Fair enough. We've we've gotten through the most.
Also, I'm pretty sure I'm not closeted. So.
Right, I said that. I was like, hey,
you're very open with it.
We're gentlemen of distinguished tastes. We're very open about it. There's nothing wrong with it.
And just real quick, can you just stop sharing your screen?
I'm trying to figure out how to do that. Stop streaming. There we go.
Awesome. Great. Excellent. Okay. So any thoughts on the recent kerfuffle that you want to share with us to start us off, or?
Yeah, I mean, I will not be cast in Gamergate 2. I'm going to leave this horror story to the next generation. I'm happy to talk about just some of the meta issues here, but my strongest suggestion to anyone is don't get involved with this. It's not worth what it's going to do to you in your career and your mental health. So that's my statement.
Okay, well, thank you for being here. Appreciate you agreeing to do this. We'll get into the details as we go. Next up, Soy Addle. What you got for us?
Hi. So, I don't usually talk about this, but I was in the games industry for over a decade. I got some notes here. So I started at Riot around 2011 when it was between 60 and 100 employees. Then I moved on to a couple other jobs, eventually landed at Blizzard Austin when they started doing Java and account development stuff there. And so around 2014, I was neck deep in the games industry. I was a volunteer at Penny Arcade Expo West when Zoe Quinn had to cancel an appearance because of rumors or accusations or whatever. And so I'm somewhat connected with this. And as well, when the Sweet Baby Inc. stuff started off, I was on point and making sure that I understood what was going on. So that involved discussions with Tachyon. But really, the thing that's that's really pertinent is that I was a part of the 16,000 game developers who lost our jobs, and
Mm.
the reason why is something I'm sure we'll get into. I definitely have a lot of notes about exactly how game developers got in this situation, why the games industry is hurting, and it's not what you think.
It's not what
I'm
I
really
think.
sorry to hear that.
Yeah. Yeah. Apologies.
Well,
You
I've got a
lost your
new job
job.
now. Yeah, I decided to get a dream job in nuclear, so my career aspirations are completely divergent from games at this point. I can go back to enjoying games instead of having to play them for work.
Okay. Well, thank you for being here. Really appreciate you, and I think it's a good perspective to have. Thank you. Next up, we have Tachyon Blue. Hello, please go ahead.
Hi, I'm Tachyon Blue. I stream on YouTube and Kick. I was involved with Gamergate from about spring 2015 to around 2018. I hosted the St. Louis meetups. I also wrote a 2019 book, Gamergate First Battle of the Culture War. I hosted panels at conventions, 2 conventions where they happened, Arch Anime and Natsucon, a third one where a group of people on social media pressured them into silencing the event, unfortunately, at Archon in St. Louis. Um, I'm working on a book right now. I've interviewed over 50 people involved in the quote unquote first Gamergate on both sides, and I've heard out a wide variety of perspectives. And I've also spoken with Doyadel here too about Gamergate as well.
Okay. Well, thanks for being here, and I'm sure we'll get into it as we go. I'm sure we'll get your perspective on things, and see if there is any overlap between what's happening now with Sweet Baby Inc. and what happened back then. We'll see how this goes. Last but certainly not least, short, fat otaku. Dev, go ahead. What are your thoughts?
Hi. Well, I was part of Gamergate back in the day on the pro GG side. I've been doing nothing but talking about this for the past week. This is the big story right now, you know?
It
And
is, yes.
yeah, so I think I've been on maybe 4 different shows at this point, like talking about old Gamergate, bringing up old lore, going over what it was like back then, and then comparing it to what's happening right now.
Well, go ahead. Yeah.
Well, it definitely feels like the same sort of event for sure. You know, as someone who has been perpetually outside the entire industry and just like been looking at it from the outside in, it feels like the same event from the bottom up. You know what I mean? So it's going to be fun to get into the comparisons, I think.
It will. Well, I guess to start us off, I guess I'd just like to pose a question, right? Is this Gamergate 2?
Please, please,
I mean,
let's speed run it this time. Let's go faster.
there's been something like 5 Gamergate 2s over the years, to be honest.
Yeah.
This feels the same, but I'm not sure there's ever going to be a real Gamergate 2, you know?
Yeah.
Memes aside.
Can just for my audience who, if you've been not following this topic, right? If you've had your Twitter off or you don't follow any kind of people involved in the games industry and things like that, can any volunteers to kind of explain what's happening with the Sweet Baby Inc. thing?
We should probably have
I have
one person from the progressive side and one person from the
Yes.
not progressive side describe it. So go ahead.
So
Soyaddle
let me
seems to
start
wanna go.
out.
Yeah.
Let me start out with I have a choice, a bisection of the issue, and so then Dev can decide which one it is. Maybe Tachyon will agree, maybe he won't. So Sweet Baby Inc. is either about lazy recycled pleases everyone content and Sweet Baby Incorporated trying to suppress research into their body of work, or is it about feminism making all of our games boring and shutting down anti-feminist critics?
Why can't it be both?
Okay. Well, if it's both, and I said this last time on Wick, if it's both, it's like putting lutefisk in my peanut butter. And I cannot ignore the flavor of anti-feminism in my games journalism and my games criticism. I'm sorry, I can't. So if it is about both, it's number 2.
So Soyaddle, I think a lot of people, the way they look at it, and this isn't everybody, a lot of people have different critiques of the situation. But I think the way a lot of people look at it is, it seems like there is this clique of people that includes some games journalists and some of the people working for the progressive consulting companies, possibly, and some indie developers. And this group of people hold a social justice ideology, call it whatever you want. And unfortunately, they don't believe in living like in a pluralistic society, and they don't believe in a pluralistic games industry. A lot of them don't. And so, unfortunately, these same people, they have a lot of problems dealing with people who disagree with them. And so that's why they tried to engage in like censorship against Cabrutus in the
Well,
Steam group, for instance,
before
because
hold on.
they can't handle.
Yeah.
Sure, hold on. Before we get too deep in the weeds, I don't think we've had a good explanation of what the fuck happened, right? Like, and what the fuck is going on.
Fair,
So
sorry.
let's stick to that. So Yaddle gave his kind of like, I just want kind of like a TLDR of the order of events here as you've seen them. So Yaddle,
Oh,
we're going to stick with you for the
well,
progressive side,
way
and then
back.
we'll go to. Oh,
I don't think
Yeah,
Aim is explaining Sweet Baby very well here. I feel like that's not happening.
say, can you
yeah,
say? Hold on. Can you repeat that? Woo, I didn't hear it.
You can call me Brie. So
Sure,
I don't think Aim was kind of explaining Sweet Baby really well. So let me just give a super Deb. Please correct me if I'm wrong. But long story short, there was a group of people out there that were investigating. They noticed that a whole bunch of games that did not do very well were all consulted on by this company, Sweet Baby Inc. Sweet Baby Inc. Apologies. It contained some people, including what was their name again? Felix. What was their last name?
Felix
Deb?
Kramer. Yeah.
Felix Kramer, who was a major figure from the Gamergate era, and a whole bunch of people that seem to have, your typical what you would pejoratively call SJW progressive values. And then a whole bunch of people started to basically investigate it. They're attributing some wide attributes to the work that they did on these games. Some people are saying it's why it failed. In some cases, like Saints Row Reboot, even I would agree with Dev that the politics on that game were so distracting with the story that did not make it a better product. But then, too, some games that were objectively extremely good, like Alan Wake 2. So it's basically you've got these kind of self-appointed freelance journalists out there. They're digging in and they are concerned that basically this company is pushing games in a political direction they find objectionable. Is that the gist of it?
That is
I think we
more or
can.
less the gist of it.
Yeah,
I mean, my view has always been that you can be a progressive and make a good game. There's many good games out there made by progressives. The issue is that when a progressive makes a bad game, they hide behind their progressivism. And that's their
Mm.
excuse. Like, well, you just don't like us because we're progressives and you're a Gamergate man baby chud. And it's like, well, no, it's because your game sucks.
Is progressivism what put live services and microtransactions into Suicide Squad versus the Justice League? And is progressivism why the publisher decided to block out all of the mainstream games press from pre-reviewing that game?
No, but
Okay.
progressivism is why you had all of those cringy scenes of Harley Quinn girl bossing her way through the story and killing all the characters that people actually like.
I Well, isn't that just like all the rest of the Harley Quinn films?
Yeah, they suck too.
Okay. Well, then it's before then because I've got this video from Andy Mion, who I think is a major figure in 2.0 or whatever iteration of Gamergate we're on. And way back in November of 2022, he posted this video about ESG worming its way into video games, and that's environmental, social, and governance scoring. It's a kind of a risk assessment made to show investors whether or not a stock or a security is something that could have unrealized risks in these categories. And so his claim is that, oh, this is just wokeifying games, and he's been talking about this for years. And I think even Tachyon was very generous and said like, hey, looks like this has been brought up, before Kiwi Farms. It was brought up on 8chan and 4chan, and this has been sort of boiling. I thought it had to do with when Alan Wake 2 press and Sweet Baby Inc. was sort of identified by the press as a good thing in Alan Wake 2. And this is sort of the backlash to that good press, in my opinion.
I mean, maybe.
Well, the current.
I,
Do you
yeah,
want to go?
you go ahead, talk. No, go ahead.
Okay. So the current I do think it is important to note though that there were people talking about this on various online forums, including Kiwi Farms and 8chan and Reddit and NeoGAF too, presumably others, prior to all this happening. And there were a couple of YouTubers who talked about Sweet Bea Bing too prior to like months ago, prior to this controversy. But the current controversy, the reason this all blew up was because of the Streisand effect.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Streisand. Hold on.
Because of the harassment.
The harassment.
Yeah,
That,
yeah.
Well,
that
okay.
changed her perception.
Hold on.
You want to call it harassment? Then we can talk about harassment on both
Well,
sides. You're an expert on this.
Let's
So
take
here's-
it step by
here.
step, please. Go ahead,
Yeah,
Dev.
step by step. So the current iteration of the story, because if we're gonna go back to 2022 and ESG, it's a much wider topic, right? Because that stuff's been looked at by people on the internet for like a decade now. But a decade now, right? I know like ESG didn't really come around till like 2020-ish, but like there were precursors, people talking about the Chinese social credit score. Like you can follow basically a logic trail all the way back probably to Gamergate 1, which is why everyone talks about Gamergate when they're talking about this. This specific step of the conversation is about basically it's about Cabrutus. He made the Steam page. He said, these are all the games that Sweet Baby Inc. have worked on. They call it the Sweet Baby Inc. Detector, or Detected or something. He makes this Steam page. The Steam page, people laugh at it, so it's a bit of a joke, because we all kind of knew that Sweet Baby Inc. was a thing. It was kind of floating around in the cultural space. But the minute that people who worked at Sweet Baby Inc. turned on the Steam page and said, hold on, mass report this, get this taken down, fuck this guy, get him banned off Steam, that's when it blew up into a whole thing. And that's how these things always work, right? It's like someone is doing something you don't like, you attack them for it, and then they get massive amounts of support from the internet because of the Streisand effect.
And what were they doing that you think that the developers didn't like?
Well, putting a bunch of their games in a list. And then saying, don't play these games. Yeah.
And review
And what?
bombing? Review bombing, definitely.
Were they?
In fact, yes. And I've got some screenshots that I can pull up on
Sure.
exactly what is.
If you want,
Okay.
here I'll give you permission to share your screen if you'd like. Hold on, give me one second.
You can pull them up, but I'm going to tell you right now, I don't view review bombing as that big of a sin.
Oh, okay. So if there's like a bit of coordination behind the scenes, there's a forum or something, and we're all like, "Hey, this is bad. These people should be punished. They need to have their scores go down on Metacritic and on Steam, and yeah, get them." Then that's not okay.
Well, let me tell you exactly what's going on, though. Here, so if you look at, for example, the Skullgirl situation from last summer, you'll see a whole bunch of people review bomb that game because it was in the spotlight. But also, you can also tell that a bunch of those people never played Skullgirls. They have less than 1 hour because it's Steam, right? You can see how much they played the game when they leave a review. Some people played the game for hundreds of hours. Some people played the game for 0 hours. So if it's a whole bunch of reviews with 0 hours on them. Also, I think Steam actually allows you to remove those reviews, in fact, if no one's actually played the game. They do, because they did it for Skullgirls. So
Yeah.
if it's a situation where you have a bunch of people who have played these games and they leave negative reviews because they're pissed off about how the game was made or some people involved, that's fine to me. I'm completely okay with that.
So if I can jump in here, this may be a hot take. Like I understand as a developer, it hurts to have your game reviewed bomb, but at a certain point, like this is just the industry, right? It's not like when a developer puts out their game, they don't ask their friends to go rate and review it positively, right? So the other thing happens in the other direction. I would also really argue that the like Metacritic reviews, I don't know how y'all see it, but I've always interpreted this as in SFO, you're probably not going to like this, but like what does the kind of angry, like typical gamer review think of this game overall? Because I don't think it's like a lot of people like me that go in and spend a lot of time on Metacritic. So I take that with like a grain of salt. And then if I'm looking for something from like someone I trust, I will go to SkillUp or, one of the other reviewers that I really trust on there. So I kind of feel like a certain amount of internet reactivity is based into a Steam review or a Metacritic score. Am I alone in that? Do you not agree?
I completely agree with you, actually. I completely agree with
Yeah.
you. For example, if you look at like Rotten Tomatoes, right? There's a reason they
Yeah.
have the critic score and they have the audience score,
Hmm.
because that is where the audience can come out and just bomb a movie if they don't like it, even if critics do, right? And I think that sort of two-tiered system is actually pretty good. You know, I like
Just real
um
quick,
go- what's up?
Seattle, you are sharing your screen, so if you're opening things,
Yeah.
just be aware, because I just saw you open something, and I don't
Nope.
want a VOD situation,
To be
right?
sorted.
Open the
be
Vosh
sorted.
folder. Do it. Do it.
Anyway, but yeah,
There you go.
so just I'll let you go, Dev, in a second, but just to contextualize what's on the screen here, Soyaddle is sharing, I'm assuming, screenshots of what he considers review bombs, and we'll have that up while Dev talks. Dev, continue, please.
Right. So I mean, I'm looking at this right now. It says that, not recommended, 0.2 hours on record. The only thing that it says is Sweet Baby Ink. Right. Now,
Right.
because I've seen, I saw the Skullgirls developers delete a bunch of reviews like this, then surely these people can do it as well. If these are illegitimate reviews, they can be removed from Steam. I'm not too worried
And
about that.
I think that's happened for Suicide Squad versus the Justice League. If you actually go and look, this one's Assassin's Creed Valhalla. That was restricted in a different way that I found a little funny. But basically, yes, I think that Suicide Squad versus Justice League has been scrubbed, but some of these others are not. And so if I'm looking at this list, we've got a whole bunch of games. Two of them, Dungeons and Dragons, Dark Alliance, and what was the other one? It was Assassin's Creed Valhalla. When I navigated those pages from the curator list, it told me the content was not available. Now Tachyon said on his phone it worked, so maybe it was a glitch. But there seemed to be, for the big game companies, there's definitely the power. They have the sway over Steam to get these negative scores removed, these negative reviews removed. However, if we look at games like NeoCab, Kingdom 80s, Shadow Gambit, and Battle Shapers, those are all indie games that had Sweet Baby Inc. content in them, and they're probably feeling awful about this. Like they might not have the sway to get these scores, these reviews removed from Twitch. If you listen to Thor, who's just blown up recently on Twitch, he says that he's powerless to kind of remove bad reviews, negative reviews from his game as an indie developer. He's just at the mercy of the crowd, where giant corporations, well, they can kind of put their thumb on the scale a little bit.
Well,
That's a
so do we have any reason to think that Cabrutus tried to direct people to leave false reviews? Or is it just that
Oh,
millions of people know
it
about this, and so
it's a
therefore
coincidence.
now, well, it's a relatively small number of negative reviews.
just are you done sharing the screen, or
You can take it off.
okay?
I'll tell
And
you when I
obviously,
got
it
more.
just seems like if millions of people know about this topic, it's
Maybe if you
highly
could stop streaming
controversial.
too.
Some people are going to leave negative reviews, even if they haven't played the game. I don't support people doing that, but it seems like that's going to happen. And unless you have evidence that they specifically encouraged people to do this, Cabrutus or like other moderators in the group,
It
then it
and
doesn't seem
it
like there's anything
doesn't.
necessarily wrong.
After all we've been over this, after all, like, how the timeline lines up, how the, like, Assassin's Creed scores went from mostly positive to mixed recently. It, like, the last screen that I had up showed only the recent reviews and how they took a massive turn. There's it's just sort of a consequence of having this list up. And
Isn't that a
and to be
criticism
clear,
of these
go ahead.
platforms? I mean, it seems to me like this has been a problem with Metacritic and the Steam review system for a long time. I really put the onus on these systems that rate to kind of look at these huge surges and ask, like, is there something we need to be doing differently? One of I don't want this to be about Gamergate, but I think one of the lessons that game developers should have taken from that era, and one of the few things I can say in favor of the Gamergaters is if you try to shut these people up, it doesn't go well. And look, I've gotten criticism of my game. I think Revolution 60 is a much better game than, like it has, it got a reputation of being. But, at a certain point, it's like you've got to let the internet have its say because trying to silence it just makes things worse. So I really put the criticism here on those platforms.
Yeah.
I guess my
Yeah, I mean,
question.
I agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah.
My question, right? Because again, I've read a lot on this. I was talking to Brianna before the rest of you came in. I talked to Cabrutus in DMs. He shared screenshots of the Sweet Baby Inc. employee telling people to mass report him and things like that. Um, I guess my question is, given that, as you said, Bree, the lesson should be to let them have their say. The articles I've read, and I've read a few of them. There's one in Guardian, there's one in Kotaku, there's a few other articles that were published in other various things. They all don't seem to be doing that, right? They all seem to be saying that this isn't about the quality of the games, but this is merely a harassment campaign.
Yeah.
That this is people who don't like black people in their games, who don't like women in their games, who don't like feminism in their games, who think the games are going woke, they don't like their pronouns and things like that. And this is their way to direct review bombs, as Soyaddle has pointed out. Like, what would be the response to that? Like, because that seems to be the party line, at least amongst the journalists.
I think it's true.
You think that's true? It's just that's what's happening here?
I think it's their motivation for that. I think there's a certain segment of the gaming population that gets very, very hostile when they perceive politics they don't like. This is just a reality. I mean, can anyone disagree with this?
A segment, yeah, not all,
Yeah.
obviously, but
No,
there are
not all,
definitely.
but
I have definitely
there's
like. So
yeah,
so here, I've seen some people who have been like, "There's a black person in this game. It's woke," and it's like, "Are you fucking retarded?
yeah,
No, that's not what's happening. No, no, like that's obviously too far in the other direction now, right?" But there's definitely some people who they're they're tired. They're tired of basically having morality spoon fed to them in their art, and it's been happening now for like over a decade, and they're just fucking tired of it, and now they're lashing out, right? I mean, when we were on Adam and Sitch, Brianna, there was
mhm,
that image that I pulled up where it's like someone a progressive says that everything's political, and they can't tell the difference between Metal Gear Solid, Bioshock, and then the picture of Trump bumping into Peter Griffin in Family Guy, right? And like
yeah,
that's what's going on there, is that those games, they did have a political conversation, but they did not beat you over the head with it. They did not tell you what to think or how to act. They
sure,
allowed you to. Yeah, I'll even say, like, I remember there was a controversy over Far Cry. Was it 5? The one
yes,
with like the Christian cult, right?
yes.
Was it 5? Yeah.
It
And there was
didn't
a
go hard
controversy back
enough.
then.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's controversy back then of people saying like this makes right wingers, look really bad. It was actually a really good game. It was
yeah,
actually a really good game. Um,
love that
so
game.
it's not about we don't want politics in the game. It's that we want it to be better than what we have had, basically. And there's been some
Yeah.
shit fucking games.
And Dev,
I
if I can
disagree.
add on to that for just this will be super quick. There's also a constituency that goes the other way. Like look at what happened with Cyberpunk 2077, the mix it up girl. Like if you've played this game, there's a trans woman with a very large penis that's like wearing a leotard, right? And you see the outline of it, and it's all over Night City. It's everywhere, right? And trans Twitter got really, really upset about this game because it did not, in their view, like have trans representation the way that they wanted. So I'm just saying, like, this isn't a unique feature of the right or the left. This is everybody nowadays. Like, I think there's a larger constituency on the right for this in games, but it's just factually true. It exists both ways.
Mhm.
You
Yeah.
had
Yeah.
you were going to contest a point that they were saying there. Please.
That it's not about politics. It's sort of like it's not about politics in games. It's just that it's lazy politics in games. And if
Mm.
that's your position, then you you actually should be looking at the Kim Belair GDC talk and thinking in your mind based, because she is approached by companies who are like, yeah, we kind of feel we need like a token black person in this game. And she's like, whoa, don't just do that. That's lazy. That's stupid. That's really gonna piss people like me off. Can we actually make a good story out of this like weird political selection you've made? And so they're there to serve that corporate need.
So
If
so
that's all
so
they were
yeah,
doing, I would agree with you. Yes.
So what
And
is
I
the
do
hold
have
on,
evidence otherwise.
hold on. What is the just so we can be clear, okay? Because the problem with again, I did a lot of research on this before the show over the weekend. I spent a lot of time looking into a lot of things. The problem is it seems like we're having like 3 different conversations and 3
Mhm.
different kinds of threads that people are all trying to pull on, and they are only semi-collected. So I want to hear from Tachyon and from Dev. What is the specific accusation on the company, Sweet Baby Inc.? What are I'm putting aside the harassment employee thing, right? Like, which is a big deal, right? But for the company itself, why are people mad at the company itself? What is the accusation of what they are doing? Go ahead.
so do you mind if I take this one?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so you're probably gonna have different people with different critiques, but one thing that I've heard doing a live stream with talking with people about this recently is that a lot of people, they are skeptical that these hyper progressive consulting firms, and like let's be honest, like that is what some of these are. This Sweet Baby Inc. is funded by Eileen Holoka, and her co-founder both say they call themselves white settlers, and appear to have like some of these people appear to have like extreme political ideologies, which is fine. You can make progressive games, you can make games that have those politics in it. I'm not opposed to that at all. But I think a lot of people look at this and they're asking themselves, are these progressive consulting firms that put a lot of emphasis on politics, are they making the games better or not? And as a consumer, a lot of them are thinking either no or I'm not sure, but I don't like some of the stuff that their employees are doing and saying, and it seems like they don't seem like super great people, and so
This
they
will
don't
take
trust them
yeah.
to make good games,
This will
to make
take
the
10
games better.
seconds. This is a 10-second question. I gave a very specific example with Cyberpunk. You're using words like extreme politics, extreme progressive politics. Can you give an example of extreme progressive politics?
And just real
Yeah, I
quick
think
for
calling yourself a
real
white
quick for a
settler.
housekeeping thing. Soyal, can you stop staring at your screen just so we can have the
Okay, fine.
yeah?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I think that
Wait, what's wrong with him staring at the screen?
I get
calling
it's
yourself a white settler,
Okay.
I think
Sorry.
that
No,
is probably
in the game,
indicative that you're probably
in the
in the
game, that
yeah,
makes
I
it to the
don't
point, that
specifically
makes it
know
to
of
the point.
specific
You
changes
don't
that they made.
have a
Yeah,
specific, this is a
we need more
huge
transparency.
scandal. So you don't have a specific thing you can point to saying this is hyper progressive. You're just
I got
talking
it.
your
It's
I have
it,
one, but yeah.
intentions. Yeah.
it it's literally the black girl in AC Valhalla. No, sorry.
Okay. No. This is one that I went over with you on Out of the
Sure.
Citriana. It was it was the Assassin's Creed Valhalla one where they completely rewrote the historical story of the Vikings invading the UK and raping and pillaging, bringing back women, stealing a bunch of stuff, killing people. They recast them as migrants who are fleeing their ravaged homeland to try and build a better life. And like, oh my god, this is some European migrant shit all over again. That's what you're casting this fucking story as, and it's ridiculous.
I see. This is where it's hard for me to make the connection because we don't know that Sweet Baby Inc. did that, and I think that this is a company with a long history in these games of kind of oversimplifying history and not looking at some of the most divisive themes. So I don't know if that's super strong evidence.
That's true. So it could have been some other terrible person working on the game. Yes, I
But
concede that.
fair, or corporate meddling.
Mhm. Well, this is the thing, because when I interviewed that that guy who worked on Saints Row, the impression that I got was that people at the top, and I know we've had this conversation like 4 times, Brianna, so it's
I know.
gonna sound
You do
boring
your
to you.
thing. You do
But
your thing.
yeah. This is new to everyone else. So people at the top of the company, they're not progressive. You know, they're not ideologically devoted to this sort of politics. They want to do what makes them money. And they're told by people in the company, this is what'll make you money, you know? Put that pride flag in the game. It'll make you money. And then the guys at the top are like, really? Like, we don't fucking know. We just want to make money. And so they're told to do it, right? And that's what ended up happening with Saints Row, because when I interviewed the guy who worked on it, he's like, yeah, they brought in these writing consultants. We weren't allowed to countermand them. They were writing shit, and the people at the top were utterly convinced this is the way to go, and it wasn't the way to go. So it's not just progressivism. It's
Mhm.
progressivism combined with people at the top of these companies who are completely out of touch. They don't know what their audiences want, and they've basically been bamboozled.
But that's not all. There's more.
What else? Tell me about it.
Okay, so you know about all the layoffs we've had. We've had about 200,000 people in tech laid off in 2023, over 16,000 specific layoffs in the games industry, and there's an estimate that only 1 out of every 6 are going to retain their jobs in the next 6 months.
Only 1 out of every 6?
Yep.
Damn.
Only 1 out of
Okay.
every 6. So some of the layoffs is because the COVID lockdowns went away. Some of it is like we're doing more user generated content. But here's the big kicker. There's also a surprise tax law change in 2023. It's in section 174. It changes how you can write off development costs. Instead of right there in that year, you have to amortize it over 5 or 15. If it's an H-1B, you have to go over 15 years. So this was there because the GOP and Donald Trump needed to offset the change in the top marginal tax bracket from 39.6 to 37%. So, you know, Jeff Bezos and all the other American billionaires get a huge, like $2.2 trillion tax reduction. And then 5 years later, you know, they kick the can down the road and say, oh yeah, 5 years later, this is going to come into effect. It'll balance our budget, right? They're fiscally responsible someday, not today when we pass the tax cut, but 5 years down the road when it's not their problem. And so what does this have to do? Wick is going to ask.
That is my question.
Sweet Baby Inc. is a vendor providing services. You get to write that off immediately. They're in Canada. They're not a, you know, part of your American tax structure. They're literally a vendor writing services. So, okay, so do you think there's a possibility that the 3 or 4 writers out of our 500-person studio are a little overworked and we need some outside consultants to pick up the slack? Yeah, and we get to write it off. Great. I'm going to like make a lot of money and get to write off all of those, you know, contractor scripts right away instead of having to amortize it over 5 years.
I mean, that sounds plausible, right? I don't know anything about this specific instance that you're talking about, but I do know something similar happened with journalists during
Right.
2018, 2019. It was during Trump's 4 years at some point, where basically Obama passed something that basically it basically provided a whole bunch of money for journalism, and then it was 5 years again. In 5 years, when it ran out, there was a shit ton of journalist layoffs, and I think it was 2018 or 2019 when a whole bunch of them lost their jobs because the money ran out. And it was all just kind of provided for by the U.S. government.
So just
we also had Gawker get sued out of existence. That's another
Sure.
thing.
Well, they deserved that though, for fuck's sake.
to bring this a little bit back, right? And I just want to pose some questions to the group. Do we think that the games industry today is in a better or a worse place than it was 10 years ago? What do we think?
Much worse.
Generally worse, but the highs are higher, I think.
What do you mean by that? Can you elaborate?
There have been some really good games in the past 5 years. Some really fucking good games.
The best games
yeah.
are doing really well, and the fans are rewarding them. But it is kind of a flash in the pan. Like we saw Pal World up and down. Helldivers 2 is going to be up and down. And hopefully more of us get to play those games and enjoy them together. But and hopefully they don't like disappear in 6 months. We're not flavor of the month because this is the alternative between a live services game like Kill the Justice League and Helldivers 2 or Helldivers 2 has seasons, so maybe not. But Pal World, if that's one and done, is that going to leave someone who didn't catch it on the wave with FOMO, with missing out on a good thing? And is the developer going to be putting money on the table? Which is the reason in the games industry, the reason we have in-app purchases and season passes and all this bullshit to keep
Yeah.
the game alive.
Yeah, just to bounce off of that, I mean, when Gamergate started, I remember going to GDC and seeing a talk about Mass Effect 3 coming out, right? Think about how different the game industry is today than Mass Effect 3, back when DLC was like cutting edge for a game to have, right? It seems to me, and please correct me if you disagree with this, but I think one of the forces that's happened in the game industry is budgets have exploded. I remember when Alpha Protocol came out. This is a completely forgotten Sega published title
I
that
haven't
came out
forgotten
in
it.
the after. I love that game. It came out in
Me
the
either.
aftermath of Mass Effect. Right. I'd probably guess from having played this was probably a $10 to $20 million game to develop. It's not a AAA game, it's just a solid A release, like by a major publisher. Those games barely exist today. And the budgets for these games have exploded as everyone's trying to be the next Call of Duty or, like major thing. So there are a lot of things to critique about the game industry. And I think most of them, honestly, are the money men that have like corrupted this whole field and made it really hard to bring a game like I don't think a Final Fantasy Tactics could be made today. Like there's a reason you don't get games like that anymore. So one of the things I find so frustrating with the Sweet Baby Inc. thing is, yeah, gamers are right that games suck nowadays. You are completely correct about that. But you're blaming all the wrong forces for it, and you're thinking about the wrong problems.
But
Oh, well,
if
hold
I'm
on. I don't
Sure,
think I am though,
please,
because
please. No,
yeah,
not you. I'm talking
I'm
about
yeah,
gamers overall. Yeah,
yeah. So, because I'm only partially blaming Sweet Baby Inc. I don't, they're a small piece of the puzzle. I admit that,
sure.
right? Like there's a lot going on here.
yeah, I
Sorry, Wick.
guess
Sorry, Wick. Go ahead.
yeah, th- when we talk about how a lot of the criticisms for Sweet Baby Inc. is that they have somehow, and I'm sure you've all seen the clips of them of their, what was her name? Please remind me.
Kim
Kim
Belair
Belair?
Yeah,
or
thank you.
yeah.
Yeah.
Where she's saying, oh, you should really pressure your marketing team, pressure your sales team into getting us on board because we're going to make your game profitable. We're going to appeal to the money men. So, Bree, when you talk about how money men have ruined the game,
Mm-hmm.
it seems to be like connected to the criticism of Sweet Baby Inc. That Sweet Baby Inc. has used that fact and pressured these money men, or somehow tricked them, or gotten into bed with them, or the accusations vary, and they are being used to sell kind of a soulless product. Does that make sense?
They're playing the game 100%. They're coming in and telling you that there's a constituency for this particular point of view and that they can do it better and cheaper than other people can do. I think whether that's true or not is an open question, but I think you're dead on with that analysis.
And
And just one
yeah,
more super quick thing, because Dev, we talked about this the other day. I really think a jump off point from here is talking about the incestuous nature of the game industry, top to bottom, development side, production side, journalism side. It is a much smaller place than people give it credit for. And I think that
Mhm.
also has major ramifications for the transparency and the integrity in many of the choices that are made.
when
Yeah,
we
I mean that was the big thing during Gamergate 1, right? For those of us who weren't out there harassing people, that was the big thing. It was like, listen, we realized that man, one story that I haven't talked about yet. Like, was it called like Kim in Dinosaur Land was the game? It was some game that was submitted to the IGF, and because they weren't friends with people who ran the IGF like everyone else was, who won, their game didn't even get played. Right, like it got judged without getting played because they had access to the runtime. So it was one of these situations where it's like, you have a bunch of indie devs who probably make decent stuff and they're decent people, but because they're on the outside of the clique, they don't get a fair shake. And this isn't solely a capitalist problem. It's also a nepotism problem, and that's independent of what economic model you use.
It's
Right.
hard
But
to,
yeah,
if I may, it's hard to
sure.
critique that because I gotta tell you, gang, every industry, including the military that I've worked for, has operated on similar principles. It's not what you
Mhm.
know, it's who you know at the end of the day. And so to say that the indie game developers who network with and work with the judges get more favorable ratings just makes sense to me. It doesn't seem to be all that nefarious, nor does it seem to be all that outside of the norm of just how things work. So when we talk about people being transparent with Sweet Baby Inc., because I want to tie this back into what's happening now, um,
Well, they
do
also have sex with them, Wick.
developers owe the consumers transparency on working with Sweet Baby Inc.? Is that something that they even owe the
Mm.
consumer?
Whether or not people are have different views on that too, of course. But like whether or not they owe the transparency, I don't feel like obligated to do so. But it could be nice, and it could help dispel some of the things that people's worst fears about the situation if they knew more information about the process.
Well, how about this? How about this? Right. So if you actually play these games, you'll see Sweet Baby Inc. credited in the credits. Right. So it is transparent. It is there if you want to go look for it. Um, but I mean, part of the point of the Steam list, which they objected really hard to, was the transparency, because that's part of it too. You have people coming out and saying, "Hey, these people worked on this game." That seems fine to me.
So
Was
I
it
want to come back
was
to
it
this is before we leap off of this because it was a
yeah.
topic ago. Dev, I want to come back to something you were talking about, which is you
Sure.
have a concern that these indie awards are not being judged fairly, and I think that's a fair critique as someone who is participated in giving like awards to games, right? But I think like this is what I sometimes find frustrating. It's like an indie award is not the only kind of like way that things get promoted. In my view, in 2024, a much bigger variable that anyone that works in marketing will tell you is much more important for getting your game word of mouth is Twitch. You know, who's playing it, who's streaming it, who's giving it attention. And if you look at who the biggest Twitch streamers are, yeah, they tend to come from a very certain cohort of gamers and they tend to have very similar tastes. So I think the truth is that no matter where your politics are, no matter what your message is, no matter what your game like type is, you're going to have a certain uphill battle. And I think if you talk to many, women, POC, LGBT game developers that make games that appeal to those kind of like progressive ideas, I think they would probably tell you they're fighting a much bigger uphill battle.
So one of
See,
the
I completely agree with you. I completely
But
agree with you on
Yeah.
that. Well,
wait, wait, wait,
just real
wait. You
quick.
mean
Let me just
you,
answer real quick though,
yeah,
because
answer real
I,
quick.
I, I think I have like a 20-second answer here. So I completely agree with you. I
Mhm.
probably wouldn't make the IGF argument today. 10 years ago, they were much more important than they are now, for sure. Now it is all about streamers and YouTubers, but back then that was a big deal, which is why I talked about it 10 years ago.
Yeah, on the subject of streamers and YouTubers and things, I think this importance of Twitch and large viewerships and things like that and how it affects gaming and the game industry. I got a little bit of a taste of that when I tried to get the author of the Kotaku article on. Um, she had been tweeting, or they, I'm not sure exactly. They had been tweeting about how they really wanted to talk about this, right? And they were spamming like, please, Hassan, have me on, right? I really need to talk about this and really need to get this off my chest and things like that. So if you don't have that kind of connection or that kind of clout, like I don't, I'm a very small YouTube boy, right? You don't get a piece of that pie, right? You aren't considered important. And I think that is at play not just in journalism about the gaming industry, but also with the gaming industry itself. It makes sense though, right? Like obviously you want the biggest names to play your games. Obviously you want the biggest names to talk about your topic, and it's just a good use of your time. So I'm not exactly complaining here, but I'm just kind of drawing parallels. But I know Soyato wanted to say some things. Go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna soy about Brianna removing white men like me from video games, and is that what it's about? Because I don't think it really
What are you
isn't. It's
What?
talking
about
about?
What?
What?
it was because it's so hard as a woman or a minority to be involved in these spaces. Does that mean removing white dudes? Does that
No.
mean that?
No
It
one
doesn't?
said that or hinted that in any way.
Okay.
No
Just
one.
checking, because Andy Mion is saying this. He is literally saying this on his videos. And that's what drives controversies like this. It's what
Right.
brings out
Yeah.
the base.
I have no idea who this guy is, man. Like,
Yeah.
sorry.
I saw
Okay.
one
I've
video
never
about
heard
him
of him. I've never heard of
just
him before.
recently.
I sent you 5 videos and you sent me one back, Tachyon. Come on.
I didn't watch all those.
Okay.
So no offense.
Go ahead, Tachyon, please.
Wick,
All right.
you asked. Unless you have more to say, sorry.
No, that's it.
Okay, so Wick, you asked earlier about her quote from GDC, and we could read the full thing if you want, or I think it is worth asking questions about the sort of so-called protection racket kind of language. Like Anita Sarkeesian had this tweet. I'm going to send it to you guys from 2019. She says, "Hey, CD Projekt Red, I'm always available for consulting because it sure sounds like you might need it before the whole of the internet drags you for what sounds like some potentially sexist representations, which we all know you've struggled with in the past." Now that strikes me as being somewhat protection rackety, very much so. Now the Kim Belair comments a little bit. She did say that she jokes about that a lot, and she did also caveat her statement by saying that if the game developers in the room agree with her perspective, then they should go to the marketing people, which is a little bit different than publicly blasting them on Twitter, a specific company, and demanding that they hire you,
Is this
or
something
else
that
they're
people
sexist.
feel are happening though, on a systemic basis, or on a big enough basis to be actually worthy of criticism though? I confess I'm not in games development. I've never have been, right? I do follow some on Twitter. I do read on occasion rock paper shotgun, things like that, right? Um I don't see this as a big thing. It just, like, when Dev was first telling me about this whole Sweet Baby controversy, I'm going to be real with you, it seemed like a nothing burger until they
Yeah.
got to the harassment part by the employee. And then it was like,
Yeah.
okay, maybe this is a big deal, right? Because that's, I think, the line for me.
And-
When employees
Did you
of a
watch the
company...
2 hours, Which?
It's
I
a line
did.
for-
I
2
did
hours?
watch the 2 hours, but that was mostly like litigating.
It was
anyway.
backstory, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Yeah. I think it is a line for me too, like going after Kabrutus's Steam account. Like for me, I sort of, instead of showing my hours played, I'll tell you the value of my Steam account. It's between $3,000 and $12,000. So if you look at the harm that could have been done to Kabrutus, we're talking, let's say triple that. Let's say like $45,000 of harm to an individual if we're going by torts. They kind of triple damages in some cases like this. So is that victory if you get that much out of these independent game developers and the major corporations? If you get like one contract canceled from Sweet Baby Inc., is that victory, or do you want more?
That is a good question.
Yeah.
To Dev and to Tachyon, like, what's the win state for you? Since you guys, let's be real, Gamergaters lost. They lost.
Well,
back in
to
November.
clarify though,
I think they lost
both
Tachyon,
in
yeah.
26. That's fine, but in 2016, most of them felt like they won, according to Brad Glasgow and Chris Ferguson's research. And when I interview people now, most of them think that it was either somewhat or fully successful.
But
Mostly somewhat,
point,
though, I think.
My point, though, is what does, to Soyata's question, what does victory look like with Sweet Baby Inc.? What changes do you want to see? What do you want to see happen, right? That would satisfy you, that would right whatever wrong you think is going on here, please.
Well, I can make it very easy. I know exactly. Leave the list up. Be public about who actually what games are worked on by that company, and then allow people to decide whether or not they want to buy them. And then, if things go the way that I think they'll go, those games will bomb. They will stop. They will stop selling, and then eventually that company will stop getting work.
So
You
I have a
mean all
comment on
the
that.
I think that's a
Hold
great
on,
Hold
hold
on,
answer.
on.
hold
Can
on.
I
One
yeah,
at a time. One at a time. We're gonna
yeah.
go to
Thank
Bree, and
you.
then we're gonna go to Tachyon, then we're gonna go to Soyaddle, and that's the order we're gonna go in. Go
So
ahead.
I agree with you, Dev, and I think one of the really good things about that is a congenital problem in the game industry is getting credit for your work. And I think demystifying, like making sure all these side companies and the people that work on them are properly credited in the games, like this is a huge issue. So it's transparency for the consumer and it's better for the workers in many ways. I do want to say though, Tachyon, I have a very straightforward question for you right now. Why are you not showing your face today? My face is here. My real name is here. Anyone can look me up, my public comments. Why are you hiding, even though you're an author, behind an anonymous account? Why do you do that?
Well, I am public. My name is Kevin McDonald,
Okay,
and
cool.
I've written a book. I'm not on camera. I don't have a webcam. I do tons and tons of book interviews that go like 7 hours.
Okay,
I don't feel like
fair
being
enough.
on
Let
camera,
me
so I
just
didn't
come
buy one.
back to my point then. Why do so many of the people doing this do so from anonymous accounts? What is the reason for that? Because they don't want to get investigated and harassed and all that kind of stuff, right? So you can understand why there is also an argument on the other side for people not wanting to get harassed by people in the game industry. I can tell you people that worked on Call of Duty, they've had to get law enforcement involved because they changed the way a gun was working and they got crazy death threats about it. There is a very weird element of the game industry with a player base that can go nuts and harass the hell out of you. And that's true for game developers, it's true for journalists, it's true for everyone. So I'm for transparency, but I understand why there's this impetus not to want transparency when there's so much, when there is a huge harassment problem that everyone faces.
Do you want
Yeah,
to
I mean,
respond? Go ahead.
I agree that obviously anyone who's engaging in harassment, I don't support that. Don't do that. Don't send people death threats. I think everybody on the panel is in agreement about this. So
Yeah.
you asked Wick
What
about
does
what can be
victory look
done.
like in this
Yeah,
situation? Yes.
I don't know. I mean, I don't necessarily consider myself like to be one of like the activists necessarily working against like SBI or progressive consulting groups. I think that like most of the people involved, they have a similar answer from what I've talked to some people, not everybody, of course, not even a representative sample that I've talked to, but I've talked to some people about this controversy. And a lot of the people who are upset, they just say, yeah, I think that, obviously they shouldn't engage in the harassment and they should just let it stay up and let people make their own purchasing decisions. That seems to be the general consensus. Now, like as for like an idealized world, I think we're probably gonna have to we're gonna have to like look at like the actions beyond just the Sweet Baby Inc. controversy. We're gonna have to like look at like the way the games press and like the Guardian too covered it. Because you mentioned the articles earlier, Wick, and I sent you that list. This is almost certainly incomplete by now. But Kotaku, The Gamer, PC Gamer, Eurogamer, Aftermath, Mary Sue, The Guardian, and Media Matters, none of them actually talk about what happened. None of them talk
Oh,
about the Steam group at all. Now, PC Gamer does mention
right.
that Sweet Baby Inc. employees mentioned it on Twitter. They didn't say that they directed their followers to go and mass flag them, though. So none of all these gaming sites, and The Guardian was especially like egregious, they don't cover the story. We know that some of the writers who wrote these articles, like Alyssa Mercante of Kotaku, they knew that there was more to the story. We know because of COD. This was from the Side Scrollers podcast. Actually, they interviewed Cabrutus, and COD, this user of the Discord, did an interview with Alyssa Mercante that she didn't run with, and she didn't include any details from, where he told her about the story, and this was not in her article at all. And it's not just her; it's several other articles. Now, obviously, don't send them like death threats or anything, but like ideally, like the people who deliberately lied, like probably should be terminated or severely reprimanded, and there needs to be like an apology and retraction from these companies, these gaming sites.
What do we
Will
think of
that
that?
mean
Go
that
ahead.
the list will come down if they sort of face those consequences? Because I'm
That's up
looking
to
at all
Cabrutus.
these.
He's a free individual. He can make his own decisions.
Okay, because I'm looking at all these indie dev studios. Not EA, not the folks who make Dungeons and Dragons and Assassin's Creed and Suicide Squad, but the indie devs who have like 3, 4 games on their Steam pages. Like they don't even have a Steam page they're so small. What's going to happen with them?
Well, the people who are subscribed to this curator group, they're going to see that Sweet Baby Inc. worked on those games, and they can decide for themselves if they want to buy it or not.
And maybe like buy it, review it, and refund it, because that's happening. They're getting 0.2 hour, and so are you going like Dev, like you advocated to have Steam reform this and get them to maybe automatically scrub any review with less than an hour? Is that something you'd be in support of?
Yeah, probably, I think. I mean, I don't know, because you could, like, buy a game, play it 15 minutes, it's complete and utter shit, like the Gollum game from last year or something, and then leave a negative review, right? Like, I don't know. I
Right.
do know that you can report reviews that are very clearly, like, from some sort of review bomb campaign. You can report them to Steam, and Steam does take action, so,
So
So
th-
use the service.
I want to come back to this because I feel like we skated past this, and I really want everyone to engage on this because I think this is a really central point of contention I haven't heard an answer to. And look, to be clear, what I'm about to talk about is not a left versus right problem. And to really illustrate that, I'm going to give an example of the left doing this. So again, to come back to Cyberpunk Night City, that mix it up example. There was a huge like controversy about a woman with a penis in this game and like the genitals or something. There was no non-binary option, right? And then a cyberpunk developer used a hashtag won't be erased, and a bunch of the fringe leftists doxed and harassed the hell out of them, right? So the thing I feel like there's tension on, and again, this is not a right versus left issue, but there is this extremely acrimonious player base that does get really weirdly parasocial with devs and journalists that make the games. So it's not surprising to me when, I think we all agree, ideally the Sweet Baby Inc. thing, like this should be public, they should leave that list up. I also understand the kind of defensive crouch that makes people make bad decisions. So how do we agree at all that there is some legitimate frustration within the game industry at just nut jobs coming and making your life a living hell?
Yes, and it's
Yeah,
not just the games industry, right?
oh yeah.
Because,
right.
like, it's just the internet at this point, man.
Exactly.
I mean, I know that there's definitely been, cancel brigades from the right that have gone after left-leaning people and the other way around. Like, there's an Antifa group in my city that doxed me, right? Like, so, like, I know what it's like. It seems to be just part of the fabric of the internet at this point. That there's going to be some retards out there who take it offline, and it's unacceptable no matter which way it goes.
Do
Yeah, agreed.
yep. No, I look. Yeah, this is way far and beyond just a games industry problem. I do want to talk about ways to kind of mitigate this and ways to kind of address it when it does happen, because the frustrating part for me is that they they aren't wrong, right? People like Kotaku and these other things, they aren't wrong when they say that much of this, not all of it, maybe even not a majority of it, but much of it is acrimonious because they have pronouns in their it's just it's a political statement that is being made by the people who are critical of them. They are doing it because they say they don't want politics in the game, but it's not. It's a political statement they're
It,
making. And
and
so they aren't wrong when they highlight that. But it misses, I think, the larger point of a lot of the criticism. And I don't know how to square this circle. Does that make sense? Soyaddle, you're trying to go? I don't mean to talk over
oh,
you.
I
Go
was going
ahead.
to say that like Tachyon even has the data for this. Like he went over the data from his own pre-selected group, had a survey done, and basically 91% or more agree this is culture war, and this is
Well, he
late
should.
Gamergate, right?
Yeah, but also it should be pointed out that the way they asked the question was a little bit weird. But yes, a lot of people they don't think it's necessarily like Gamergate was the culture war. A lot of people do think that. But the question was whether or not they think that I could just pull up the data shoot.
Yeah.
Except it'll be just a minute. So if you want to keep going, I'll pull up the data in the
Yeah.
meantime. Okay.
So yeah, this is this is Tachyon's own
Well, this
survey
is
in
Chris
like the
Ferguson and Brad
okay
Glasgow's research, not mine. I
okay.
interviewed both of
So
them though.
but where did the participants came from? An open call to people who supported Gamergate pretty late in the arc, and so this is a
Well, December
pre-selected group of
2015,
supporters.
January 2016. Of
Okay,
Yeah, but I think it's pretty
yeah,
good data. But yeah.
you're right, but it is a pre-selected group, and this was like after Not Your Shield, after Anti-Harassment Squad, after all of the the reform of the Gamergate movement had taken place, and the best you have is like 91% say, yeah, I kind of don't want feminists deciding what are in some games. That's the reason I'm involved in this. That's the reason that we need to be aware and be activated. This is
Mm.
Is
this
that
is
what
the
it's a culture war
population.
means in that data? I haven't seen this before. I don't know what's going on.
Are you familiar with
Is that
Brad
what that means?
Glasgow's work, SFO?
I've heard the name, but I don't remember who he is.
Okay. Yeah, he was a journalist. He worked with Chris Ferguson of I think at the time he might have went to the University of Central Florida. Now he's with Stetson University. And they actually have a peer-reviewed paper. Here it is. I'll pull it up on
Okay.
Worked with
screen
him a
in one
lot
second.
during Gamergate. I'm surprised y'all don't know this. He did a lot of the work behind the scenes, trying to basically put together, SJ Society of Professional Journalist panels. He tried to put together like some independent awards from the right and the left for outstanding game journalism that I was
No,
a
that's
part of.
Koretsky.
It's been a decade.
Unless Brad Glasgow helped with that too, or Chris.
You know, I did, it's been a decade, so thank you for the correction. I know I did some work with Brad Glasgow though during Gamergate. Maybe I'm conflating the two. I apologize.
Yeah, it's been a while. And
Yeah.
just a housekeeping thing while we go, it is a little past the top of the hour. Gang, if you're liking this content, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, right? Like, help me, put a Wick Detected Steam group out and, send all these hundreds of thousands of people my way. That'd be great. $5 from Artemis Fowl to say, I agree with Woo here. People should be leveraging a lot of her inside knowledge on how things worked. She is a good avenue for information. Thank you for the
Sweet.
$5. And gang, and we will be reading super chats at the top of the next hour too. If you want to send them, helps me make money. I'm sorry for interrupting the exchange. Continue, but if
So how can we kind of move this industry? Because like one of the reasons I really don't want to get involved this time around is it feels like no one learned the right lesson from Gamergate. Like I am on record of saying I think in many ways the left has just wholly adopted the exact same Gamergate playbook, uses it shamelessly. They use it on me all the time since October 7th.
Hogwarts
I'm on
Legacy,
record,
yeah.
right, 100%. I'm on record like saying that. So so I think there are two things that are true here, right? I am willing a decade later to admit that there is a culture of the game industry, and especially in journalism, that is very, I wish I had a more artful word, but incestuous, right? And I think that gamers are kind of picking up on some of the disdain that their critics, their supposed champions, actually have for them. I also think it's true that games journalism is so much less powerful and important to the success of games today that like IGN and Polygon are just like maybe a third as culturally powerful as they were a decade ago. So it feels like if y'all want a bigger voice, it seems like there's a whole it seems like the problem is less so, and it seems like there's a solution, right? Because you can go find a YouTuber that makes reviews you agree with, and you can get information about games that's kind of according to your liking. We can all do that. At the same time, I really do think there's this harassment problem that has not gotten better. When I got involved with Gamergate, my mission was to get harassment policy put into law. I worked with people like Congresswoman Catherine Clark, and I completely failed at this, right? As a result of that, our entire political discourse is kind of like poison today. So, like we've got these two situations. Like reactionary gamers are everywhere. The answer is clearly not like telling them to shut up, gamers are canceled, like gamers are over, your audience doesn't have to be gamers. That's not working. Like, how can we kind of like solve this or try to frack and live together, right? Like, what's the policy specifically that gets us to where we need to go?
None. Sorry for the black pill.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
agree.
I don't think it's a policy issue. It seems to be more of a cultural issue. It seems
Yeah,
to be more the fact that we're all spending more time on social media. We're getting exposed to other ideas less. We've become less tolerant of other ideas, ideas
true.
that we disagree with. We get kind of cordoned off into our own echo chambers, and as
Yep.
soon as we encounter somebody who believes something different, we react very, very negatively because it's so new and it's so offensive to us. You know,
Yeah.
It's almost like my generation was the last halfway normal generation because we existed before the internet existed. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I
So
do.
on some level, this is not a problem that can be solved with government policy. I don't think.
So,
I
well, let me tell you something you can do as an individual. Like, go out there. This is a good practice. Like, Dev, one of the reasons we became friends is I enjoy listening to perspectives that I disagree with. And for you as an individual, like, go click that SFO video that you think is going to piss you off and try
Yes,
to
do it.
engage with those arguments. It is a win win situation, no matter which political side you're on, because you can't beat your enemy if you don't understand them. And from my own side, progressives, our ability to engage with ideas we disagree with, we're a 90-pound weakling right now. We just go straight to the name calling, and we cannot like engage with anyone's arguments, which is why so many people are turning away from us. So,
but Bree,
This is all
yeah,
true. Yeah,
go
this is
ahead.
hold
all
on.
true.
Yeah.
Oh,
But real quick,
okay, go ahead.
Bree, like, what is to be engaged with, right? How do you engage with someone making an what? Okay, I'll just say it. An unhinged fucking rant about how pronouns in Starfield has ruined the game. Oh my god, this is the soilest thing that has ever happened. And you're listening to this, and it's embarrassing, right, for that person. You've played the game, and Starfield was okay. It was all right, right? It wasn't anything to.
It was less than okay, to be
Yeah,
Well,
honest.
I
I
thought it
agree.
was fine, but it's not gonna win any awards in my book. Like I played it, I finished it, I'm done, right? But like that wasn't the problem with Starfield, right? Even if you
Yeah.
dislike the game, that wasn't the problem. How do you engage with that? It's impossible to engage. Like, other than mocking it and making fun of it, what do I do?
You can't engage with that. We did mock it, and mocking is a very effective political tactic. Dev, I think you have a video about that actually. But I think like you've got to use your higher brain function. And when someone is telling you something that upsets you or kind of conflicts with your beliefs, like let's take a very concrete example here. Tachyon Blue at the beginning of this was talking about a list that just put information out of games that Sweet Baby had worked on, right? This is a transparency thing, it's public information, it's criticism. Like we can just you can engage with that in good faith, right? I think we gotta get past this idea that everything that upsets us is automatically harassment because it's not.
Yes.
Yeah.
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 I'll even give you the other example, in fact, because this is something that you might have even done it to me, Brianna, back in the day. But
Hmm.
I know someone who is a big name in GamerGate did it to me back in the day, where it's like, I did just want to talk about the issue, and I was immediately blocked and called a racist or whatever. Right? It was like, well, what the fuck? Like, and it's one of those like I remember to go back again to Adam and Sitch. I pointed out on that stream, Brianna, that a lot
Hmm.
of gamers, they weren't far right. They weren't ridiculous people. They were people who were basically bullied growing up, and they were kind of shat on by a lot of other people. And then they got to, let's say, their early 20s, and they expected the only people who ever had their back in the cultural sphere were the people at the head of the games industry, who would
Yep.
come on and defend them from religious Christians trying to censor games and take away games because they're too violent or whatever. And I said, well, you guys have our backs. We are the nerds who don't get any play with women, and we have nothing going on in our lives, but at least you guys have our backs. And then 2014 comes, and they don't have our backs. It was a major backstab, which is why I think a lot of people, like, man, I thinking back on it, in 2015, Sargon was a Bernie bro. All right.
Yeah.
and he's very conservative now. I think a lot of people were just lost from the left due to a culture war because the people at the top of the gaming space just did not want to admit when they had fucked up.
Yeah.
Well, I got to engage with that a little bit because I think we need to pay attention to the source material for a lot of these things. And I know that Tachyon is kind of in denial about how it is connected. And I don't just mean the fall of Gawker is connected to Peter Thiel, is connected to Steve Bannon, is connected to Donald Trump. I mean, philosophically, and I tried to get him to watch this video from James Lindsay about how the right is trying to fight progressive and calling it the culture war and developing very, very sophisticated tactics and how to engage with the subject and how to dismantle and build power. And if we're not ready to deal with that, we are really, really fucked. Like
Well,
we absolutely need to go over the soldiers like heels versus babyface, and we need to find his influencers. We need to find the intellectuals of the right and engage with their strategies, their tactics, and find a way to dismantle the movement at its face.
so I do want to say real quick, I will respond to that. But Wick, I can't screen share for some reason, not to the group here.
I got to give you a roll. What do you want to screen share?
Well, Suedo asked me to bring up the study from Chris Ferguson.
Here, give me a second. Try now.
Okay.
Should work.
All right, give me 2 seconds there.
Everybody is screen sharing today.
I get it. It's a thing. Well, we want receipts, and receipts are good. So I'm gonna remove all these rules after you guys are done. But
Okay, here it is. Can you all see it?
I
Yep.
can.
Okay. All right. So question 38. Now, I assume you were referring to one of the later ones, unless it's what you were referring to. So
No,
we'll
the
go over a few. Yeah.
specific questions.
So this was asking, many of the people who support Gamergate have different goals and different interpretations of what Gamergate is fighting against. Out of 100% of its efforts, how much has Gamergate focused on the following aspects in your view? And they could rank each one up into 100%. So ethics and games journalism topped out as a plurality there, followed by fighting the social justice ideology, and then fighting against censorship too. So the average number of people said that 36% of Gamergate. This is asking them about what Gamergate has done so far, not necessarily the direction they want it to go in, mind you. I think that's actually the next question.
Right. And I just want
Well,
to
they
point
say-
out is that like my reaction to this was I hate this chart because it actively hides the sentiment and you are very
well,
gracious.
they
and thank you
they go.
for-
We're gonna go down
Yeah.
and read the other ones too.
yeah.
And then this is what people think it should focus on. 42% or 42 average rather ethics and games journalism, 23% against social justice ideology, and 33% against censorship. 5% of people said other. That could have been people talking about any number of things, but possibly industry issues too, like microtransactions, things like that.
Where's the
was a big
agree
cohort.
disagrees? Yeah.
Is this relevant to
Yeah,
Sweet Baby?
Well, you mentioned a specific thing.
Can you
Soil.
tie in this to the larger conversation? That's all.
That it has always been about the culture war. And so these agree disagrees break down to the ones about feminism.
Okay.
Feminist
roughly.
critics
Can I
would
ask a-
censor your games if they had your way. So 77% strongly agreed, 19% somewhat agreed, 1.8% neither agree nor disagree, and then less than 1% for disagree.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
that
then
makes
there's
sense.
another one too, which is game developers have changed their games for the worse as a result of feminism. 48% disagree or agreed, strongly agreed. 42%
And then-
somewhat,
yeah.
6% neither agree nor disagree, 2% somewhat disagree, and 1% strongly disagree.
That
And
makes a lot of sense. Can I ask a clarifying question here? Did I hear you say, Soy, that your goal, your plan, I may have misheard this, so apologies if I did. Did I hear that you wanted to defeat and like get right-wing messages out of the video game industry? Because I would have a really big problem
Oh
with
no,
it if,
no,
yeah,
I want to be
yeah,
able to have the equipment to face them in my daily life
okay,
and
good.
not
I
back
knew I
down. Not
misunderstood you.
Yeah,
Okay, good.
I'm
Yeah.
not trying to paper things over. I want everyone to have the capability to defeat these questions head on every day, because we're not going to win in the general election if we're not ready to do that. If we can't talk to people, during Halloween right before the election about issues that matter.
I don't know if I agree with that. What I want is a game industry where every single constituency can have a game for them, right? So Dev did a really good video on Stellar Blade that's coming out. It's got a hypersexualized woman as the protagonist. It's kind of an old school character design. I love these games. I like porny games. I'm embarrassed to say it's my guilty pleasure. I'm a constituency for this game, and so are a lot of other people, right? It's not, I enjoy feminist games too, but I don't have any problem with this type of thing existing in the marketplace. I think if you want like a game with like your BioShock, Ayn Rand, libertarian vibes, I want that game to exist. I also want games to exist like Boyfriend Dungeon that like starts off and it's like, hey, is it okay if we talk about sexual trauma? Hey, are you asexual? Are you comfortable with romance scenes? Hey, what are your genders? Are you male, female, or non-binary? Like that kind of extreme take on it. I want for that to exist too. And I think it's really important we get past this idea that for me to enjoy games, you have to not enjoy games. Like the answer is like we all can, everyone has their say, they can create the art that they want and the best games succeed in the marketplace. That's what I want to
it
move towards.
it does
Yes,
Yeah,
seem
I
and
strongly agree with that, Brianna.
Yeah.
Actually, it's great that we found common ground.
we all say this when we're on these panels together, and maybe I just have the most reasonable people in the world on my show right
No,
now, which is
my opinion
possible.
has changed on this week
Oh,
drastically. So
fair enough. But
yeah.
yeah,
the
I don't
reason,
think this was you 10 years ago. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
the
Pretty
reason
much,
I'm
yeah.
saying this is because, as Tachyon said, here we may all agree on that, but when you go out into the world, right, when you look at the responses from all sides on these kinds of things, it is always coming up. So with Stellar Blade, I think it's a perfect example. There's a lot of people who I saw from the left who were very unhappy with that game, saying it was over-sexualized, it was anti-feminist, it was all these things, right, and wanted... Hogwarts Legacy is perhaps a better example, right? Much more clear-cut. I think everyone's knows the controversy around that. Your first appearance on my show, actually, Brianna, was you coming to talk negatively about
This was
Hogwarts
look.
Legacy.
So,
Right.
and I'll say it again here. I thought that a boycott would hurt Hogwarts Legacy. And look, this is fine. Like if right wingers want to say, I don't want to buy this game because I don't like that it has non-binary pronouns in it, God bless. That's your right as consumers, right? I don't like J.K. Rowling, right? I thought that it was reasonable to try to put together a boycott of that. The boycott absolutely failed. And because I care about trans people and trans rights, I said, we need to be honest and say that gamers are not going to stand with us and we need to find other ways to address this issue, right?
Yeah.
So I have no issue with calling for a boycott. That's just like the right wing has every right in the world to do that if they don't like Sweet
But
Baby.
and I agree with you in principle, but what tends to happen is we call for a boycott when it has something we don't like in a game, and so the pressures it puts on the industry are causing very bad games to be produced because they try to be as anodyne and inoffensive and, dare I say, unfun as possible because they want to appeal to the largest audience possible without triggering one of these sides into calling for a boycott and getting ass mad. That's my problem with the gaming industry today. But go on, please.
I want
I did have a
to challenge this.
disclosure to make, actually. We're just super fast. I should, just so the audience is aware, I did participate in that survey. that we cited earlier.
Okay.
So I was a
Fair enough.
participant, and then I also
Oh.
I did interview Troy Levitt too, the game developer from Hogwarts Legacy.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
That's
So I want to challenge, like, in the case of a boycott, and especially as it pertains to Palestine and other things that are happening in the world, uh, is it sort of right that we form social cliques around this kind of a movement, like a boycott? Like, okay, I can't talk to him at the party because he didn't boycott Hogwarts Legacy.
Well, there's two different things happening here, right? Because there's the boycott where you don't buy a product and you don't, right? And you don't engage with it. And then there's the boycott where you harass people who do. The first
Yes,
one is fine, the second one isn't.
correct. Yeah, I mean, like there were people out there that put together lists of, like streamers that played, Hogwarts Legacy, right? I think
Mhm.
this is a very hard tactic to defend, right? So yeah, I
What's the
fully
difference
agree with
between
that.
that and putting together a list of uh games that have worked with Sweet Baby Inc? Why you guys all seem to be okay with that list? Why are we not in the
Well,
order
The
in like
harassment. It's the
it's the
harassment.
harassment, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
really?
for example, if you got a list together of everyone who played Hogwarts Legacy, like personally, it's a little bit deranged, but you can do that. The issue is that they went to people and they harassed them for streaming it, which was completely beyond the pale, completely unacceptable. Shouldn't be happening.
I understand, but we
I
can
like
draw hold on. We can draw a
okay.
connection between them making a list of people who played Hogwarts Legacy and the harassment they received. Because I'm sure, right? Some of the people who made that list, maybe not all. Okay, well, look, the left is so unhinged right now. Maybe this is just an incorrect statement. But ideally, you would have someone who would say, you know what? I don't want to watch anyone who plays Hogwarts Legacy. I don't want to harass them or anything. I just don't want to follow them. I don't want to watch them, right? And I'm going to make a list so other people who also don't want that can just not watch them. They don't want harassment and things like that done. But we saw how it can lead to harassment. So when you have someone making like a Cabrutus there, making a list saying, hey, I don't want to play any of these games because I don't like Sweet Baby Inc. I don't like what they do. I really don't want to purchase anything involved with them. So I'm going to make a list right there. I don't want any harassment to come. But then we see harassment coming. Is there not a parallel between these two things? What is the specific
There is,
difference?
yeah. There's a parallel, but in both cases, I would say you don't blame the list, you blame the harassers. The list
Yeah,
itself is fine.
that's exactly right.
Yep.
Okay, fair
And
enough.
it's got to
I,
be said, like, I know it sucks to have your game torn apart. I know bad reviews hurt. I wish gamers would be more kind because game development is so hard. And no matter the worst game you've ever played out there, someone has done 80-hour weeks trying to make that game good for you, and they did the best that they could. And I think if gamers understood the experience of making games, they'd be a little bit less abrasive with their criticism. But that said, like, don't make art if you don't want to get critiqued. Don't go into politics if you don't want to get critiqued, and don't make art if you don't like want people to have an opinion about what you make. It's just not reasonable.
How do we make games fun again, gang?
Expel all the feminists, firstly. Get rid of
Base.
all the women.
Excellent. Okay.
we need more like baby ghosts funds, and Dev, maybe you can make one for white dudes like me, and we'll have like all of these grant programs run in
Based.
Canada, and
Well,
make
well,
all
well,
these
you know what?
different game studios. Yeah.
I'll start up the Master Race Fund, okay? It funds only white men, and we can get white male games. That's how it'll be.
I
I
I,
think
I sense I sense
go.
more 4X games coming. I sense more like RTS games coming, and I'm here for it.
Man, can we had a good like a good solid RTS game again? Like it's been so long since I played one that I've fallen in love with. Maybe that's just me getting older. I don't know. But Brianna wanted to say something. Go ahead.
Yeah, there's the Terminator Dark Fate game RTS. That's really bad. Don't play that. But no, I would say I think games need to go back to basics. I think it's time to get away from these $200 million games. We need to have smaller games with smaller scope, and we just need to be able to present that, which is I think one of the good things about the Game Pass model is it does give a chance for games like Unpacking or these smaller games to have an audience. One of the things is the game development tools to make games are so much more sophisticated today, and tasks that you used to have to like get an intern to like get carpal tunnel doing, like UV mapping. We've actually got really good tools to automate that nowadays and do textures and things like that. Automatic LOD in Unreal Engine 5 is actually pretty decent. So I think that like one of the problems is when we get better tools that make game development faster, what has happened is we just keep going even further. We make the game longer, we make the scope bigger. I think we need to go the opposite way. I think we need to move back to like PlayStation length games and get the audience more used to that. Because if a game is only costing 10, 20, 30 million dollars to make, we'll have a lot of different kind of games on the market, we'll have more people employed, and we'll have more chances to have fun stuff.
See, I'm not sure. I'm not sure, right? I think as we've improved tools to make games, and it's become easier to make games in some ways, that's allowed a lot of people who couldn't make games before to make games. That's
Mhm.
both good and bad, because sometimes you have some real gems in there where they just needed to get over a technological hurdle they couldn't get over 10 years ago or 20 years ago. Now they can. That's great. That also means there's a whole bunch of people who have no fucking business making games that are now making games, and they're shitty games,
Name
right?
names. Go ahead.
Well, it's one of those things where, like, I know. Here, I'll use some lefty terms just for you, Soyadal. Okay, as you, one of the big downsides of democratizing something is you allow a lot of people who are, I don't know, at the bottom of the barrel to get in, and now they can start doing things, and it's like, yeah, but you guys aren't good at this. You can't make a good game, actually, some of you. But now that you have enough tools to, rather than it being a pipe dream that they would be gate kept out of due to quality concerns, now they can just make their shitty game and just shit it out onto Steam. It's like, well, okay, who does that help? You know what I mean? It's one of those. This is a larger philosophical discussion, but
Mhm.
basically, like, as you, in as a very general statement, like, as you improve access to something, the quality of it goes down.
I'm
Mm.
going to
Point.
read a. Unless you have a direct comment to that, I do have some super chats I want to get to. So
Let's
No,
do it.
let's go back and forth on the philosophy, so yeah, because you brought it up earlier. You were like, we don't need to go
go
after
ahead.
Heels v Babyface over him soying out over the pronouns in Starfield. We got to go after like the intellectuals of the right wing. I think you said something like that,
Yes.
right? Yeah.
Yes, exactly. No, it's to be able to confront the horse shit like digital homicide. Here's your names. Like if you remember this s- snafu
I
back in
don't actually. Sorry,
2017.
I don't
Oh
remember this.
God. This was the horrible asset flip developer that tried to sue the Jimquisition.
Oh, okay, all right.
And
I
yeah,
This sounds vaguely familiar. I'm not sure.
right.
I don't
So
remember
this
this.
is your example forever. Digital homicide, shady, shitty asset flipper. Let them be known forever.
And Soyadal, you
Well,
said
okay.
that I was in
I'll go on.
denial
Go on.
about something.
I think that you are basically not paying attention to the lineage of the arguments that you're engaged with.
And what
Ooh.
way?
Uh, well,
You must
I
read Moldbug,
Wick
son.
Look, just
Wick
hold
didn't.
on, Soyaddle. Just be frank,
Yeah,
okay?
be
Be
Yeah,
frank.
frank.
Don't
I'm
tiptoe.
Okay,
thick-skinned.
you are at every turn, every interaction that I have with you, are defending and denying the bad and only focusing on the good of Gamergate. And I had this big, Twitter thread directed at you where you mentioned my collaboration. I said, "Hey, wait. These are the things you've got to work on. You have to acknowledge there was harassment. You can't like stick your fingers in your ears and pretend that it didn't happen because it did and it was cringe. And then after Gamergate reformed, we might have had something that moved the needle slightly, but that was mostly in motion, because of the microfinancing laws that passed in 2012. So no, it's blowing up the benefits of Gamergate and minimizing the harms. And it's just
Yep.
not
Well,
it's
Carl,
not something. Go ahead. Yeah.
I've never said that nobody ever got harassed. I myself received harassment as well. And I
Well,
know
but
I've
evidence,
seen some of the receipts. Yeah, actually, I do have evidence.
Okay,
I've
okay.
got
Well,
No,
I
no,
didn't know this
I'm
was going to be a
mocking you.
litigation of Tachyon
Be-
specifically.
yeah.
I
So
don't think
we
this is
don't
gonna
have to
be
go
a.
too far into
Yeah,
this,
well,
but
look,
this
I've
is
never said that no harassment happened. I am of the opinion that some of the harassment that people claimed has been exaggerated, or that it didn't quite happen the way that people said. And that's happened on both sides, to
Sure,
be clear too.
Right.
certainly. Okay.
fine.
So,
Fair enough.
well,
Go ahead,
hold on.
Dev. Go ahead, Dev.
Yeah, because there's more to this. Because I can actually, even though it didn't see, no offense, Tachyon, it seems like you couldn't get quite into it. I can. All right. So one of the things that I did over the Brianna, you mentioned like an hour ago or something. You mentioned you should engage with ideas that you disagree with, right?
Sure.
Starting in 2020, I went on a massive reading arc. All right. I read some Marx when I was in university. I've read a lot more Marx in the past 4 years than I did back then. Right. I've read a whole bunch of left-wing philosophy, a whole bunch of right-wing philosophy. Philosophy just seems to be my thing right now, and I read way too fucking much of it. But like one thing I've noticed is right wingers tend to understand left wing philosophy. Generally, they know like surface level, right? If you talk to like a far right person, he'll tell you who Marx was. He'll tell you the basic idea of what Marx wanted, right? If you talk to a left winger and ask them to describe right wing philosophy, they have no fucking clue. They have no fucking idea. All right, a lot of the
Why
right
would we
wing
read
political.
Hitler? Okay, why?
Oh,
There's guys way further to the right than Hitler, but that's a rabbit hole you don't want to go down. But basically, there's a lot of far right thinkers and writers out there, and they are actually influencing modern politics because, like,
yeah.
Steve Bannon did read Julius Evola. Steve Bannon did read Mencius Moldbug. These are guys that no one on the left talks about. They just say, "Oh, they're far right, therefore they're Nazi, therefore they're bad, therefore we don't need to read them." It's like, no, you actually do need to read them. You do
Yeah.
need to you need to understand these ideas. And I'm
To
saying all this to
piggyback
point out,
off. Oh, go ahead.
yeah, I'm saying all this to point out is that when the right wing is correct on an issue, you should be a right winger on that issue. It's as simple as that, right?
Yeah.
And a great example, I think you agree with me on this one, Brianna, because I just did a video on it, was I outlined the competency crisis. This
Yeah.
is a right wing idea, all right? And it explains certain problems that we're having in our society right now better than its left wing equivalent, because the left wing equivalent is late stage capitalism, which is a
Ooh.
dog shit way of conceptualizing what's going on. But the competency crisis is a much better framework to describe the problem. So, in like, when the right is correct, you should be right, and when the left is correct, you should be left. It should be more about truth, and you have that just means doing a lot of reading, and understanding where arguments come from.
I couldn't agree more. I think Israel Palestine is a really great example. And right now, it is primarily the right in the United States that is trying to see some nuance. Wick and I have both taken a lot of lumps for looking at the situation and kind of calling out our own side on some stuff. So I fully agree with that. Yeah, I think that's well said.
No, I agree as well. Like, I don't like team sports when it comes to this. I am not a Democrat because I don't agree with Democratic policies because I'm a Democrat. I agree with most Democratic policies, but sometimes the right is just right. Like, we can look at the TikTok stuff. I think the right is generally, and thankfully Biden's on board with this too, but the right is generally correct about TikTok and correct about wanting to divest TikTok from being a Chinese-owned company. Yeah. But that's neither here nor there. I do want to take the chance, speaking of money and speaking divesting, Artemis Fowl is single-handedly funding me today, apparently. So I'm going to read some of his super chats.
Just before you say, I know Artemis loves the super chats. I have one question to ask Soyadal, and then I'll move on.
Yeah,
that'll be it. Okay, this is it. So, what kind of right-wing philosophy have you read?
Well, okay, so other than James Lindsay that I just mentioned, I'd be hard pressed because I am delving very deeply into like this idea of how to defeat a cultural revolution. He's got a new book about trans stuff in schools and like early transition stuff like that. And this is the challenging stuff. So these are the topics that I find myself uncomfortable with, and from the left I know that as a white dude I'm supposed to get comfortable with feeling uncomfortable. So I'm delving into these topics specifically.
So yeah, right wingers. Oh yeah, Heinlein's good. Yeah, right wingers would call James Lindsay a leftist though.
Oh
Like,
my
he doesn't
goodness.
count.
You didn't know I did my entire high school English thesis on Heinlein. I could tell you anything about anything he's ever written.
Oh, we're gonna
That's
have to geek out later.
that
Okay.
is the reason I didn't get my AP English credit, because Heinlein is actually kind of a garbage author. But as a it's
Oh,
like the shonen thing where
Do you think do you
you
think
like the
Friday
Hey,
action.
is a
some
trans
of his books are
allegory?
quite good.
Do you think Friday is a trans allegory?
Yes,
Yes. Thank you.
yes.
Okay.
okay. So
It's
real quick.
it's also male fantasy, but yeah, it's a trans allegory.
Here, pull up a text file, okay? Because no one on the right will ever consider James. Right wingers that I talk to consider James Lindsay a leftist. Okay, so if you want to start with actual right wing philosophy, here's the book you start with: An Open Letter to Open-Minded Progressives. That's the
Who's
name of
it
the
by?
book.
Who's it by?
Mencius Moldbug.
An
Okay,
open letter to
Moldbug, yeah.
open-minded progressives. I have
It,
not
it
read
is
this, so I
it is
would
a
like to.
14 yeah, it's a 14 chapter book that is specifically designed to radicalize your average progressive towards the right wing. And everyone who's very far right that I've ever spoken to said this was the gateway to them reading stuff that's further right wing than Hitler. So reading
I'm
Evola,
sorry,
reading
for
Oswald Spengler, reading all these fucking
yeah,
crazies. All right.
for me, the gateway of joining the right should have been like organizing with 350 Sierra Club and the people at the Chop and DSA. I mean, like I survived that, so yeah, I will take Moldbug. Like I did like book studies with DSA, Naomi Klein, all this stuff. So
Oh,
I
That sounds
wow.
cancer.
if that did not put me off of the theory of leftism, it will be interesting to see how I react to this.
Nothing makes me
Mhm.
want to be more right wing than dealing with leftists online. That if
Oh my
anything's gonna
True.
be it,
god.
that's gonna
Oh
be
my
it.
god. Oh
Luckily
my god.
I don't base
Yes.
my politics based on the annoyance levels of people who
Yeah.
are for
Yeah.
or against the policy, but trust me, having to deal with some of these um people, for lack of a better word, is it's the most radicalizing thing. But no, I
Well,
think
listen.
it's
It goes
important.
both ways.
Yeah,
I
It
yeah,
get
I
goes
it.
both
get it.
ways because
Yeah.
no, just real quick, because I've had so like people. My audience is more right wing than me by far,
Sure.
and they've said, "Dev, you need to read the Open Letter of Mind Progressive." Like, okay, I'll read it. I read it, and I read it like twice, and I didn't get radicalized by it, and like they all revolted against me for not going down the pipeline. And I was like, I mean, it's interesting. It asks some very interesting questions. He's very clearly an intelligent, educated man, but no, I'm not going to turn into a fucking neo-reactionary because of this
Yeah,
book. Sorry,
just
guys.
reading a
It's not gonna
book
happen.
doesn't mean like that you have to agree with. And I wish more people like not to get too off topic here, but I wish more people had that view, because unless you understand what someone is trying to say or argue from, the point that they really actually believe, you're never going to be able to reach them, because every time you talk about the subject, they'll be like, "Well, that's not actually my position. That's not actually what I think. That's not actually what I believe." Right? You won't be able to ever engage with them honestly. So I think we need to be able to, because frankly, I think my ideas are just better and they will survive. Right now, I don't know if it's healthy to only consume right wing stuff, and there's problems with the algorithm leading you down directions, either left or right, that tend to echo chamber you. But yes, having a healthy, balanced diet of media and consumption and friends, to be clear, is probably the best way forward. Let me get these super chats because he's paid me like
Sorry
70
about that,
bucks.
Wick.
No,
Go
it's
ahead.
fine. Excuse me. Artemis Fowl for $5. I'm trying to figure out what the problem is with not wanting man haters deciding what I can play by putting themselves between myself and developers. Anyone want to engage with this one?
Can you repeat it?
Sure. I am trying to figure out what the problem is with not wanting man haters deciding what I can play by putting themselves between myself and developers.
I
Hmm.
mean, they're not doing it to every developer, right?
Fair enough.
It's pretty much the
Only
truth.
the
Like,
little ones.
well, not exactly. Like here, the thesis of his argument seems to be Sweet Baby as man haters, Sweet Baby's in between developers and the games that you play. It's like, well, even if all that's true, they're not in between every single developer in every single game, right? So like nobody at Sweet Baby worked on a Nintendo game. I can still go play Tears of the Kingdom. It's a great game, and There's nothing Sweet Baby involved in that game at all. All right, they are not the end boss of the internet. These guys.
Do
Well,
you
there
not
could be
understand
others.
how
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, they're exporting like Nintendo for localization. Those aren't always going to be in-house jobs, especially in America. It's going to be more expensive to do it now, and so they're going to outsource. So what
Oh, I know that for
happens?
sure. Yeah. There's another controversy happening now surrounding a company called Dragon Baby. If you heard about this one.
oh
No.
So this
boy.
is a company that does localization for anime and for Japanese games. And it's the same kind of problem where you have people who are politically partisans working in this company, and rather than just translating the game, they're putting in a bunch of shit that wasn't in the original translation for political purposes. It's the same kind of story happening there too. Now,
Just out of curiosity, what's a good example of that, right? Like you say that, but do you have an example in mind to share?
off the top of my head, no. Give me like 30 seconds. I'll find them. I have them in
Sure.
files. Give me a second. I can show
Okay.
you.
Well, as you're
I-
looking for the
and
files.
just to
Oh no, I was gonna use that time to read the rest of the
go
$50
ahead,
super
go ahead,
chat. Okay.
go ahead.
$50 from Artemis Fowl to say the assumption that you people are having is that somehow the things the right wants, Bannon, etc., are bad and their efforts need to be stopped, when the great many problems that everyone has with industry and institutions has been from progressives. Response.
Well,
I think I
that is
said
basically
the
what I said.
opposite. I think I
Oh,
said the opposite very explicitly here.
yeah.
So I don't think
My
that's
view was
fair.
definitely like if the right is correct, you should be a right winger. Like I think that my view there answers that. I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it depends on a case by case topic about what issue you're talking about. But the left definitely does have a lot of problems, and the right definitely does as well. They don't believe in democracy currently, like their current front runner. So let's be clear. The right has a lot of major issues.
Fair enough. Okay.
So does the left.
$20 from Artemis Fowl. And gang, remember, you too can also send me money. It doesn't have to be just Artemis Fowl. I do appreciate you, Artemis Fowl. Thank you. I do appreciate it. But
Wick
other
needs his
people can
Coke
do it
money.
too.
He needs his
I
Coke
do.
money.
Artemis Fowl for $20. The reason that progressive boycotts that involve not buying a game personally fail is because progressives do not actually invest in the communities they claim to represent and belong to. It's why they attack others instead.
Progressives do not represent the communities that they
I'm thinking
belong
he's saying
to.
a progressive ban on gaming on a game would fail. Just a straight up boycott would fail because they aren't gamers. That's what he's implying with his tweet.
I don't think that's true. I think that a lot of people just don't feel as strongly about trans dignity as trans people do. That's kind of my
Oh
take
God.
about that. Like they care about it in aggregate, but I think it's just not. I think most people like J.K. Rowling because they wrote her, their favorite book, and that's kind of just the end of thinking with it.
I think there is definitely a market for these kind of progressive, you can call them even woke games. I don't think that market is as big as perhaps some people think it is, but I
Yeah,
think that
I
there
agree.
definitely are niche products. And that's fine being a niche product. There's a lot of games that are niches. In fact, some of the best games out there don't conform to the traditional standards of oh, this is a first person shooter, or this is a platformer, or this is X and Y, but they either mix various different ones, or they take it a different direction, like Resident Evil or Metal Gear Solid. Like those are definitely like niche games. There's nothing wrong with having that. But the progressive market in terms of like woke games, like that, there's definitely a market for it. It's just that it's not everybody in society.
Artemis Fowl for
And
$10.
same goes for like Call of Duty. That's not for everybody either. Like different people have different
Oh,
tastes.
Yeah, Wick, before we do that,
oh,
can I
please.
make a comment
Yeah,
on that?
please.
I mean, I think the thing is the quote unquote woke themes. And by the way, congratulations, right wingers, for coming up with such a brilliant narrative framing device for a political ideology. Y'all did a good job. Woke is chef kiss on that. But it can be done really well and it can be done poorly. Look at a game like Cyberpunk, right? Their trans inclusion in there is if you're a female character, you can have the evolutionary penis too, if you want to have that, right? If that's your bag, it really fits into the cyberpunk themes really, really well. I think that is a really like one of my really big criticisms, or something that really pulls me out of immersion in games, is nowadays where they just won't say man or woman, right? Like you'll pull it along this slider, like which body type do you want? Body type 1 or body type 2? And I'm like, this is bad UI. Like all of these ideas can be done like well. and they can be done poorly. So I feel like there's this. I do think that there's a reactionary part of the right whose goal it's not to advocate for the kind of games they want, is to erase what they find very threatening. And I think LGBT representation in games is a really, really good example of that.
Interesting.
I
So I
agree.
want to
Unlock
I
the
want to
sliders.
there are people who out there, and Dev talked about this too earlier. There are people out there who are like, "Oh, if the game's got a black person in it, it's woke," right? There are people like that. I think that's like a pretty small portion. I don't think that most of the people who have a problem with like the woke games, even, I don't think that like their issue is like, "Oh, there's a trans character in the game." I think a lot of them really do just want good writing, and they
What is an
also like
example of woke? Can you give me an example?
of what I would consider woke, or like what other
Yeah,
people
you're
would.
talking like it's an epidemic. What? Give me some examples.
Well, I'm not. To be clear, like I'm not saying that it's like an epidemic. Like
Sure,
that's not my position.
sure.
Well, like it could be. I'd have to think about it more. But I guess like, huh? I don't know. I don't play that many new games. I mostly play like retro games. But like, so I can't really necessarily name one off the top of my head because like that's
Maybe,
not my
maybe
position.
it's not that
As
big a
that there's
problem.
too many
Yeah.
like woke games.
Yeah. I
Okay,
think it's
so hold
interesting
on.
My
that
perspective.
Cabrutus. Well, let me get. So Cabrutus also basically said in his various interviews he didn't play half the games on his list.
Okay.
Interesting.
Well, actually, I'll give you a woke
So
game because I did play this one actually recently. And like it's fine. Like Thirsty Suitors. It's the skateboarding game where it's like a mix of like skateboarding and like JRPG tactic turn-based mechanics. And they like the main character is like a rebel who's just, like also like talks about how she doesn't like the patriarchy and wants to smash it. Um, and it was like an okay game, except it's like too easy. And I think, in my opinion, it's too easy, except for the skateboarding parts, which I guess is what they put their main focus on. And like it really relies on quick time events to a high degree, which is very annoying. But it was actually kind of cool because it was made by someone who's Indian
What
and
was
Sri
woke
Lankan, I
about it?
believe. Well, that she's like well, there's like trans, like, so there's optional clothes and stuff you can have, like you can have like a trans character and like trans jacket and like trans shoes and stuff, like your outfit, change that to make it have the trans flag. She also like talks about like smashing the patriarchy, and also,
This is where problem because that's just trans people existing, dude. Like
well, I'm not
that's
opposed to it.
not.
Like, I
But
played the game all the way through.
characterized it as woke. Like this is just trying to erase trans
But like
people
I'm
from
saying, many
existing.
people would call it woke. Like I don't like use the term
Well,
woke
hold
Yeah,
on.
and
No,
that's
hold
often
on, hold on,
horseshit.
hold on, hold
That's
on.
horseshit.
to describe
We
people.
hold on, because you were asked, Tachyon, like, what is a game you consider? Like, I don't care about
Yeah.
anyone
Yeah,
else.
I don't know because I
You.
don't like use the term like woke on a regular
Okay,
basis to
fair
like
enough.
describe games. Like, oh, that's woke.
well,
I would use like progressive, and like it's a very progressive game.
so I will say, like Disco Elysium, incredibly progressive game, very good. Go
Yeah.
Would
play
it be
Good
woke?
game.
Is a question.
Woke? No, I don't think it's woke. No.
Okay. And if you have if my chat has comments, if you want to chat some examples that you want to bring up as woke, I'm very curious. Let me get through these last two super chats. I promise. It'll
Well,
be real
hold on.
quick.
You asked me to do this, Wick, so I digged it up for you. Okay, I dug it all up.
Got you.
Digged.
Okay.
I dug it up.
Thank
Okay,
you.
so in terms of the translation, it's a different topic, but it's like a related topic where you have translators that are translating things and adding stuff into it.
Sure.
Okay, so one big example everyone talks about is Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Maid, which is a scene. I mean, we're not going to go
One
over
of the
clips
super
of these
chats is
things.
that, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it's not going to be clips because I'm not going to play videos in this because
Yeah,
this is the end of the stream. But just real quick, there's a character with really big boobs named Lukoa in the original translation of the anime. She says that she put on like a shirt because her boobs were sticking out and she wasn't comfortable with that. And then in the English dub, she talks about the patriarchy instead. And it's like, well, that you shoehorn something in there, I think. All right. In the anime Prison School, there was a scene in Prison School. This was way back in 2015. So this was like 1 year after Gamergate. So, but basically, a woman in this anime insults a guy by calling him a dumbass Gamergate creep show, which was not in the original translation whatsoever because no one in Japan gave a fuck about Gamergate. Um, I
But that
know.
sounds like a localization issue. Like,
Yeah, no,
Yeah, there's a
okay,
lot of
it
the
is. Yes,
reason
localization
for this,
problems.
but Gamergate is a shorthand, like culturally, for a certain kind of gamer, and
Only
but
to people like you, Brianna.
only to certain people though, and it's not a
I don't know
widespread
if I
preference.
agree with that. I think most people want to say, yeah, like they know Gamergate. I experience that a
I don't
lot.
I don't
I
think so.
don't. I
I
don't
think
think
most
so.
normies don't
No.
care. No. I think it's still just like an online thing primarily. That's right. This is one that was very recent, just like less than a month ago. Um, the dub writer for the anime Lovely Complex came out on Twitter with a whole bunch of nonsense about hating men and hating white people and patriarchy again. And this person actually ended up losing their job because they
Oh,
went way too fucking far on Twitter. So it got to the point where the original creators of the manga of Lovely Complex saw this and it's like, listen, you can't have this person working on the dub of this fucking anime. This is ridiculous. Um, a video game example. You probably know it, Brianna. Uh, there's been a translation change in Persona 4
oh, I saw that. Yeah.
to make Naota a trans man when she was just a tomboy. It's like it
Hmm.
doesn't this is not a trans character. This is a tomboy character. And the last example that I pulled up real quick, I only get 5 of them in short notice.
Please, please.
There was a manga called I Think I Turned My Childhood Friend Into a Girl. It's a joke title. It's not about being trans at all. It's about being a crossdresser. It was localized as someone being trans, and in fact, there was a lot of pushback for this one. And they basically said you're all being transphobic because you're complaining about this. But this is about 2 boys falling in love. One of them's girly and crossdresses,
Oh.
and experiments with the crossdressing with his childhood best friend, but they made it into they made it into a transitioning story, and people who read that did not like it. So
So
those are 5 examples I can pull up just off the top of my
would
head,
you
or off
also
top of my files. Yeah.
criticize the original Sailor Moon when they turned like Zoisite, like it was a gay love story, and they turned Zoisite from season 1 of Sailor Moon into a girl, so who was
Yes.
making out with
Absolutely. Yes.
Malachi?
Yep.
Yeah, I mean these things are sometimes done like for localization and sensitivity. I think it's hard to really know, but I think you've got some examples. They're very fair.
Yeah. And to piggyback on that, I think Fire Emblem Fates 2 was one of the ones that got me really motivated with Gamergate, with the torrential downpour stuff especially, where I don't remember all the details that they've changed now, but I do remember that they took out the petting minigame where you could pet your romantic partners, and they also changed tons of dialogue where they just took it out and just replaced it with dots. And this was
I
done
remember
because they
that.
thought it might
Yeah.
be offensive, yeah. But I don't remember the
Oh my
original
fucking god.
dialogue now that which I taken out. I do remember
It's
the
been a
petting
while, but I
minigame.
remember this. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
Basically,
Dots.
there seems to be a controversy that's been brewing now for almost as long as Gamergate, where basically the quality of localizations from stuff coming from Japan over to English has been steadily decreasing, and there seems to be politics seems to play some part in that because because as the quality goes down, there's also shoehorning in messages that weren't there before. That's basically
Okay.
the story. Yeah.
No, I think that's almost worthy of its own discussion, the localization issue, because I think there is enough there, at least in the short time that you were able to give me a few examples, that it does bear looking into. I'll look into that more. Let me get through these other super chats, and I know we can't go as long as we did last time, gang. That was a lot.
It was
So
5 hours this time. Yeah, we
yeah,
can't go that long. No.
we'll try to kind of
Only
wrap
four and
this
a
up.
half hours.
Oh yeah,
Only
yeah.
4.5.
Yeah, I'm
Um,
game.
but let me get through these super chats, just so I can get the money. $10 from Artemis Fowl to say Dragon Maid removed a joke about the female dragon's body being too lewd, and the localizers removed it and put in patriarchal values in the line. Dev just gave that same example. Thank you. $5 from Artemis Fowl. The term woke was invented by the left. The right just used it the same way social justice warrior was co-opted into a derogatory manner. Thank you for the $5. I guess to close us out, a final question, if you will. What's your favorite game of the last year? Something simple, something light.
Tears of the Kingdom, easy. Though Lies of P is a close second.
Liza P. It was okay. It was
I think it
Souls
was
like,
very
but it
good.
was kind of like
It was
generic.
really good.
I liked it a lot. I actually really
Fair
liked
enough,
it.
fair enough.
Can I give one that hasn't come out this year, but I played this year?
Eh,
I don't know about that.
No, that doesn't count.
No.
It's the last
No.
year. So
Fake
2023
gamer
and
boy.
2024,
Fake
right?
gamer boy.
Yeah.
See, I'm a fake gamer. I don't play that many new games.
Mm. Okay, what do you got,
I was
Soyato?
gonna say Ace Combat 5
I
though.
Okay.
I really enjoyed City Skylines 2. I I jumped on that bandwagon. I mean, before then, and this one I really want to shout out. I really liked Hard Space Shipbreaker, but that was a year before. I played so much of that. That is like if you are like very spatially oriented and want to do outer space, hard sci-fi and all that, play Hard Space Shipbreaker. It is fantastic.
Okay, Brianna, what you got?
Yeah, it's a good game. Yeah.
Wo Long, all the way. Wo Long. It's basically so Neo is amazing. Neo 2 is amazing. Strangers of Paradise. I don't care if y'all thought it was cheesy. His like, I'm going to kill chaos thing. I don't care. That
That was
game was
ridiculous,
great.
dude.
But it was such a good game. It was such a good game. And then Wo Long comes out, which has the most like crazy stereotypical Chinese characters you've ever imagined in your whole life, and that amazing combat engine. Oh my god, it is so good. I platinumed that game. I put probably 400 hours into it. Yeah, I cannot wait for Ronin to come out. So by
Yeah,
far my favorite game.
I'm
I
gonna give
very
you.
rarely put like several hundred. Like I very rarely play a game for I don't have time anymore to play to like really go crazy in games. But like yeah, the number of games that I've put more than 100 hours into, I can count on like one hand. And it's like Zelda Breath of the Wild, Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, Hollow Knight. Not that many. There's not that many games that really just hook me in and just captivate me for 4 months
Absolutely.
straight.
Yeah.
I know.
Wow.
And you know what? The main reason I've been avoiding getting too deep into Baldur's Gate 3 is because I know it's going to be that for me as well.
Same.
Oh,
It's going to be too much.
Nice.
I being honest, that or Rogue Trader were my favorite games, but I love the CRPG thing. So one of those two. Depends on my mood which one I'll choose. But I want to highlight a game I played recently that's more indie, right? Much less well known, but I have had a blast with. I really like this genre. Maybe it's just a niche thing for me. Maybe you guys never heard of it. Mechabellum. It's a auto battler. It's set up really well in a kind of competitive kind of yeah, what's a League of Legends tactics game? The
A MOBA?
yeah, kind of
hmm
not really a MOBA, but you have rounds where you buy your little units and you put them out and they go and they fight. Tactics, um the tactics.
Sounds almost like a tower defense game.
Kind of, but it's more complex than that and it's competitive. So you would put they fight. So if you guys want to check out that, that's fine.
I just bought
Gang.
it. I just bought it.
Oh, I do want to shout out actually an indie game too. It's 2022, like Soyaddles, but Signalis is.
Yeah,
I've not finished it yet,
Signalis
but
is really
it's
good.
incredible. I love it. If you
Okay.
like Resident Evil games and the original Resident Evil games, like old school survival horror, you're gonna love this.
Okay, the chat's yelling at me is auto chess or teamfight tactics. Yes, thank you. I'm sorry, I was having a brain fart there. Gang, I want to give everyone here a chance to shout themselves out, tell us what they got going on, where they can find them, and have closing thoughts on this. I will have, and you can go if you'd like, but I will have call-ins for about 20 minutes on this or 30 minutes if people want to call in. You guys
I
can.
feel bad. I can't stay for the Collins
Yeah,
this time.
that's
I'm
fine.
sorry.
That's fine.
Sorry about that.
But yeah, we'll go into closing statements, and then we'll see what we got from there. Let's start with Dev. Give us your closing thoughts, please. We'll go in the reverse
Thank you,
order.
because I had to go at 8, so I'm gonna get right through it. Thanks for being here, everyone. I always like talking to you, Brianna. It was
Oh,
nice
I
meeting
feel
you,
the same way.
Soyaddle and Tachyon.
Likewise.
Yep.
I know we don't agree much, Soyaddle. I've seen you around a bit, and I know that we don't agree much. But it was still nice talking to you nonetheless. It's good that it wasn't a hostile conversation, because I've spoken to some bread tubers and it's been very hostile before, and it's like, well, all right, dude, okay. As for what I'm doing next, I'm probably gonna talk about Akira Toriyama next on my channel. I do want to cover probably sometime this week the whole like the transing of tomboys, that discussion, because that's gone. It's very strange because you'll see on the right wing, you'll see this a lot. You'll see they're turning all of our tomboys into trans men. They're taking away the tomboy GFs from us, and there's probably like a hint of truth to that. But I've also now seen a similar thing happening from the other way around, where you have like right wingers going after women that are too masculine. And it's like, don't you want a trad wife? And it's like, hold on, you can't hold both of these positions at the same time. You know what I mean? So I'm gonna do something with this, I think, but that'll probably be near the end of the week. So that's what I've
Where
got
do you
coming up on
fall
my
on
channel.
trans Christian trad wives, Dev?
They're based
Yeah,
100%.
yeah,
Oh my god.
yeah. I'm a big fan.
That is like 100% where I'm at right now.
Okay.
You want a trans Christian trad wife?
No, I have a Catholic trans girlfriend.
Oh, you do?
Okay.
Damn.
Is there anything else you wanted to say, Deb, before we move on? I know you
That's it.
gotta go.
That's what I've got coming down the pipe. So thanks for having me, Wick.
Always
And
pleasure.
I'll talk to you guys all three another time. I'll see you later. Okay.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.
See ya.
Bye.